Right, we're all good. Call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clerk may now take the roll.
Councilmember Porter,
Present.
Councilmember Middleton,
Present.
Councilmember Kavanaugh is absent, Councilmember Dundon,
Present.
Councilmember Costi,
Present.
Councilmember Hotchkiss,
Present.
Council President Matavetsky.
Present.
Thank you.
Due to a technical error, legislation to be voted on was not posted on the website with more than 24 hours notice. We've been advised by Corporation Counsel to have a special business meeting to remedy this issue. So we have one set for tomorrow at 3 p.m. in council chambers. The agenda and packet for this meeting are posted on the website. We welcome anyone who would like to attend and apologize the inconvenience caused by this glitch. So moving on, we will begin by approving the minutes from the business meeting on June 5th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motioned by Councilman Dundon, seconded by Councilwoman Middleton. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Reports from committees and commissions. Does anyone have anything they'd like to report? No? Okay, so we had our environmental commission meeting and we had Dr. Burling come down to discuss. We did finally get access to that data that we've been requesting for a long time. And the commission started reviewing it. They have not finished the report that they owed us because the report deadline that was set by our vote, the deadline happened before we actually got access to the data. So we are now moving forward on that. They will be writing that report and with the feedback on the city's report to share with council and Dr. Burling. So that was the main thing out of the last environmental commission meeting. The environmental commission meetings are open to the public. There is a public comment period on that. So if you have any environmental related concerns with the city, please come and make public comment there. And then traffic board, we kind of one of the bigger citywide things we voted relating to the Deco district and approved that. Otherwise, the Woodland Ave one-way discussion continues and the high school pedestrian safety issue continues. All right. Anyone else think of anything, boards or commissions?
Did you say something about the walkthrough that's going to happen July 10th?
Oh, no, please do.
Oh, okay. So, in the second district on July 10th, on the west side of Binghamton, we've had some issues with traffic. So they're going to come in and do a walk study on July 10th. If you want to be involved in that, which I encourage all the constituents that live on that side of town, myself, I'll be out there walking just to try to figure out, some issues that we have, with the traffic in that area. So that way it could be safe for everybody, walkers and drivers. So feel free to send me an email if you're interested. I could get you connected with that walkthrough on July 10th.
And traffic board also takes public comment. So if you have traffic related concerns, please either email in or come in person to traffic board. Okay. With that, we'll move on to setting public hearings. We have no public hearings to set today. So then we move on to our public hearings today. We have two public hearings today. We'll start with RL 24-116, a resolution authorizing the city to apply for and accept entitlement grants for HUD in the amount of $2,872,045. City residents are welcome to speak. You'll each have 5 minutes. So again, the specific resolution authorizing the city to apply for and accept entitlement grants from HUD. Is anyone here to speak on this topic? Oop, and the clerk. Nothing. Anybody? Okay. And the clerk has just told me that perfect, thank you, that there is no email submissions relating to RL 24-116. Nope. Yes. Okay, so come on down. Yep, come down and you'll turn the light on so it'll be green. And you have to talk kind of close to these mics for them to work. Come.
You sit down.
Mhm.
Make yourself comfortable. You're welcome.
All right. Okay, I wrote it down so I don't mess anything up and forget to say anything. So my name is Kristen Gordon Peer. I'm the Executive Director of Literacy Volunteers of Broome and Tioga Counties. We submitted a CDBG proposal in the fall in the amount of $40,000. And I'm here to express my disappointment that we were not selected for funding. I'm not saying that the agencies that were chosen are not worthy. I'm sure they are. It is just difficult for me to understand why the Community Development Advisory Committee and the mayor would not recognize the importance of funding for literacy volunteers as well. One reason might be that there's not a clear understanding of who we are and the important work we're doing in the city of Binghamton for its residents. And unfortunately, I did not get a chance to present to the committee on behalf of the agency, but only due to the fact I was not aware of the invitation to speak. I didn't even realize presentations took place until May when I wrote to Stephen Carson to inquire when the award announcements would be made and if he knew the presentation schedule so I could reserve the date on my calendar. This is when I found out that the emails were sent and we were supposed to present on November 29th, which I obviously did not. He also shared that the committee's recommendations to the mayor were made and we were not on the list, and that I could contact the mayor as he makes the final determination. So therefore, I immediately called the mayor and spoke to him that day, sharing my concern. He said he would look into what happened, would read and consider our proposal, regardless of the fact we did not get an opportunity to present. This brought me some hope, but then I was once again extremely disappointed to learn we are not considered favorably after his review. I'm not sure why, as my calls have not been returned and I've been trying to find out since June 10th. Literacy Volunteers serves adults in our community that did not receive a high school diploma, that need to learn the English language, or need basic digital literacy skills in order to find or improve employment. Each year, we witness hundreds of these individuals reach their goals. We partner with agencies such as Broome Tioga BOCES and Binghamton Adult Education, which offer classes to many of the same adults we serve. What makes us different is that we provide individualized one-to-one instruction to help these adults reach their specific education and community goals, even if they fall below the 5th grade reading and math level, which they need to attend the other programs. We are also able to take into consideration their schedules and location, as these are adults and many have families, jobs, or use public transportation. We have a small staff to intake, assess, and follow the students' educational plan and goals. And we have approximately 70 volunteer tutors trained by Literacy New York with the help of our agency that are matched with these adults to provide the individualized attention they need to succeed. Without these dedicated volunteer tutors, we would not be able to reach and teach as many individuals as we do. And without our staff, office, and educational resources and supplies, we would not have a program or the ability to organize the effort. I'm asking you today to reconsider your decision to not include literacy volunteers in your funding this year. While we do receive a small amount from New York State, follow their guidelines, and were rated highly proficient on our New York State report card for the 22-23 fiscal year, it is far from enough to support our agency. And we are locked into the same amount until the end of 24-25 fiscal year, after which we plan to ask for an increased level. In addition, although we've received generous foundation, business, and individual support, again, it does not cover the expense of serving the low-income individuals coming to our door for our no-cost tutoring program. Without the CDBG grant, our agency will have to begin making difficult decisions to reduce our services at a time that the requests for help are at an all-time high.
You have 1 minute left.
We serve the hardest to reach and the hardest to teach. We help adults get the tools they need to improve their lives and the lives of their family. We really need the city of Binghamton support, along with the support from the county and the state, to continue this much needed service. I thank you for the opportunity to share this with you today and appreciate your consideration of my request for literacy volunteers funding.
Thank you. I just wanted to say something to you because I sit on that board for CBG. First, the HUD funds, there's only a certain amount that they have. And so what they did is during the meetings, they just kind of prioritized like what they thought. And at first I want to say, I'm sorry that you didn't get a chance to present. I've actually never heard of your program and the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for doing that work in the community. I don't know if we can possibly do something about that, but I am interested in your program and what you do. Maybe we can talk to people to find some other source of funding, because this program is definitely needed, especially with Binghamton having such a high poverty rate. So the more education we can help to get some people, that helps with poverty. So I just want to tell you, I'm very sorry that you didn't get a chance to present to to that board that I sit on. Also, I will try my best to make sure that they do better with that. And there's so many programs that we need in the city of Binghamton, and we need help. So it's so hard to service every single person. One of the things I would suggest, because it is hard to service so many people, maybe next time when you ask, maybe a lower amount. I think a lot of the times that scares people when they're trying to fund and trying to service everything. If they see a bigger amount, they're not, like you're likable to service that. But please give me your information. I'd like to hear about it and definitely see what I can do.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate
Thank you.
your-
No,
your
thank you.
input. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just to clarify for the audience, because this is a public hearing, we are allowed to interact with the speakers in a way that we do not during public comment. So this is not public comment, this is public hearing. Is there anyone else to speak on a resolution authorizing the city to apply for and accept entitlement grants from HUD? Yes?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, come on down. There's extra seats. So if there's more than one person who is planning to speak for this public hearing, then we got backup seats, and there's 2 seats up here if you want to come up together.
Yes.
It's supposed to be green.
It's green, and talk real close to it.
Does hers need to be pushed?
If
here?
she wants to
All right.
talk, then
Okay.
yes.
Thanks for having me. My name is Tanya Brown. I am the new executive.
Real
director-
nice and close to the microphone.
I am the new
There.
executive director of Catholic Charities of Broome County. 4th day on the job, and I'm here to, although I've worked for the agency for 26 years, I am here to ask folks to, if possible, to reconsider or at least bring to folks' attention that our teen transitional living program, which is a program for homeless and runaway youth who could be pregnant or parenting, 16 to 21, has received a pretty devastating cut. So we were typically getting, we've been in business for 25 years, and we typically get anywhere from 15,000 to 40,000 that support staff that help the youth. And this year was a little, I thought it was a typo, but I don't think it was. I think it's 1,500 instead of maybe 15 or more. So compared to last year, it was a cut for us of $28,801. So I think I just wanted to make sure that folks understood that cutting staff to a program, in fact, the only program in the county that serves homeless and runaway youth is devastating. We kind of run on a shoestring to begin with, and the outcomes of the program have spoken for themselves. In fact, we're going to have Michaela speak because our kids are employed. They go back to school. They're go on to live independently. They can stay for up to 18 months. So we really get them sort of situated before they transition. And it in my mind, and I think many others, it prevents an increase in the homeless population of adults in the county. So I think it's a vital service. I understand that this job must be incredibly difficult trying to fund all of the folks and the requests that come through. So I'm not being critical of that, but I think it's always good to sort of speak your piece and let folks know that it's a tough cut. So I would like to turn it over to Michaela, who will push your little button and make it go green, and
Hi,
tell you about her time in the program.
My name is Michaela, and I was a resident in, I think, about 2014. So it's been about 10 years now. At the time, I was experiencing homelessness, and I was very fortunate to get a spot in TTLP. Through that program, I was able to get to work. The staff helped me significantly by providing transportation. They helped me find and apply for different scholarships to be able to go to college, apply for college. They helped me go to my student orientation so that I could see the college, pick a college, and then they just helped me have everything that I need to be able to successfully go to college. I'm very thankful for that experience. And I feel like if it wasn't for TTLP, I wouldn't have had that same experience. Now I am a graduate. I have my master's degree in social work. I actually worked at Rise a couple years ago, so I was helping some folks who also experience homelessness and domestic violence. And right now I'm working at Binghamton University as a counselor.
No matter what, that's like, congratulations to you. Yes, girl. Yeah, so I just thought it would do a disservice to the program if we didn't at least come and say that sort of cut is like devastating. That means we'll lay off a staff, which means we'll have less folks to work with people and to take them to school. Really, 90% of our folks are moving on to permanent housing. We have a really great track record. And so sometimes I think that even though we did get to do the presentation, so I will tell you that we did that already, but I thought it wouldn't hurt to come and day 4, just jump in and see what's going on at the city council. So
Thank you. I'm sorry. So I had a question. I do know that when the process was being submitted, one of the questions they did ask you, you guys, if you wanted CBG funds or ESG. Did you guys ever?
I'm
did-
really glad.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, because from my understanding, they didn't hear anything from you.
That was so confusing to us. We were
Okay.
told we could apply for both. So
Okay.
we did apply for both. And
Okay.
then we got a call back. Well, which one did you really want? And I was like, well, whatever one was going to fund us. I don't understand what you mean. Which one did we really want?
Okay.
We believed we were appropriate applicants for both.
Okay.
You said we could apply for.
Can you move a little closer to
Oh,
the
yeah.
mic?
Sorry. You said we could apply for both, so we did. And then I've never had a funder call us and say, well, where do you want that money to come from? So we did respond and say, our only goal is to keep taking care of teens. We qualify for ESG and we qualify for CDBG. It felt awkward for us to tell you when we were told that we could apply for both, which one you should pick us from. So that's where we left that. We did respond, but we said, we don't understand. I called Steve, talked to him myself. I said, I don't understand how I'm supposed to answer this question. And I get it. He couldn't really give me any direction, but I kind of felt like, well, you all opened this because you said we could apply for both. And now I feel like this is a trick question. I did tell him that. I said, I feel like this is a little bit of a trick question. Apply for both and tell us which one you wanted without giving us any feedback. We qualify for ESG, even though when people think of an emergency shelter grant, they think of like immediate housing. For teens, it's a little different. They tend to be couch surfing. They tend to be maybe in a family situation that's not okay. So it's not permanent. It's not a permanent housing and it's not an emergency shelter, but it's pretty quick resolution to their issue and housing. So, and through HUD, we do qualify for that. And we also in the past have gotten CDBG. So it was a completely confusing question for us. And I did kind of feel like it was a trick question and didn't know which way to answer it. So that's my honest answer as to we did respond, but we just didn't understand why we would be put in that position because we never had been before. And we've been doing this and getting funded from the city of Binghamton for 25 years. And that was the first like switcheroo for us.
Okay.
So anyway, just so you know, there was a different perspective to that, but for what it's worth, I wanted to offer up our thoughts on it.
I understand. And thank you so much for your service.
Thank you. Is anyone else here for RL 24-116, a resolution authorizing the city to apply for and accept entitlement grants from HUD? Great. If there are more people that are interested, again, there's extra backup seats here. You can come down and sit, so we'll have quicker transitions. All right, welcome. Make sure you speak nice and close to the mic.
We go. I've been guilty of getting way too close to this thing in the past. My name is Bryce Reynolds. I am the treasurer for the organizations that handle the NOMA Community Center, as well as the Triple Cities Makerspace. I just wanted to first off express our gratitude for the funding that we did get, both the Makerspace and NOMA. Unfortunately, the downside to that is I'm actually going to use this platform not to talk about the HUD so much, but out of the $70,000+ that we've applied to in grants from other funding sources, we got 5. So we are in the process, things are looking bleak, but we are in the process of rolling out a possum-based small dollar fundraising campaign, which I'm going to share. It is on a platform. The actual website is supportnoma.ghost.io, and you can become a subscriber and a supporter for anywhere from $10 to $50 per month. And I realized that funding is kind of, tight everywhere. So we just had to get creative. And I just wanted to also say all of the other organizations that are here and, they're kind of not doing too well on the funding either. They're welcome to come talk to me and, we'll see if we can try to figure something out that's a little bit more creative. I'm going to leave these here, these little mini flyers, if anybody wants to grab one. Or I could pass them out.
You can pass them out. Is there anyone else that's planning to come? Again, we got the 2 seats over here. And again, we are resolution authorizing the city to apply for and accept entitlement grants from HUD. Welcome. Nice and close to the mic.
Okay, go ahead. Or wait, go. Okay. My name is Jen Hill. I oversee the English as a Second Language program at the American Civic. We're through Binghamton City School District. So I came on behalf of literacy volunteers, and just to kind of give you guys an idea of the investment that you're making in the community when you support them. So I am funded separately, so I don't need your guys' money, thankfully. But I know that it's difficult. A lot of these other organizations have a hard time getting the funding. So I just wanted to present a couple pieces of data that would help you guys to understand the impact of supporting our programs. So we support adult education, and the majority of our students are ESL, English as a Second Language. If you've watched the news at all recently, you see that there is a huge amount of immigrants coming into the United States, a huge amount coming into New York City. And I don't know if I'm sure you guys are very well aware of the amount of immigrants coming into our community. Last year, our school had about 350 students, and 78% of those were immigrants. Okay. So the average age is between 25 and 44 years old. And these are people that are coming into the country. They are usually have careers in their own countries they came. So the majority of our students are coming from Haiti. We have Ukraine and Sudan are the biggest groupings. So we have doctors, lawyers, teachers, truck drivers, construction workers, all coming from different countries into our community. I don't know if you guys see the beauty of that, but there's a lot of employers needing good employees. One of their biggest barriers is the English language, right? So they come to us and they get the English that they need to then go on and be successful members of the community. By that, I mean they're taxpayers, they are homeowners, they are contributing with sales tax, right? So like every dollar that you invest in these 350 students, so I think it's like 260 students, ESL students that came through our program this year, will now go in 1 year, they'll be out in the community working, paying taxes through home sales and income. So 75% of our students come in at a very low level of literacy. And this is where we partner with literacy volunteers, and they really support getting these students. I don't know if you can think about getting a student that's in kindergarten through to 12th grade reading level, right? So that they can then apply for civil service jobs and pass their CNA testing. That's a huge job to accomplish. And our students don't have 12 years, right? They're trying to get into the workforce. So Literacy Volunteers is a huge partner with us to help them get to a higher level of reading so that they can then be successful members of the community. So I just wanted to kind of let you know that Literacy Volunteers is our biggest partner that we have here in the community to help the students get to where they need to go. And that with the investment in them, like it pays off incredible dividends for the community in financial or economic means, but also just the diversity and the culture that we have here in Binghamton. So that's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you get up, I have
Oh.
a quick question for you. I'm just curious if the ACA's literacy programming is like solely, I don't know, do you completely rely on literacy volunteers for all your literacy programming at the ACA? I think is what I'm saying.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So no, we actually are run through Binghamton City School District. So that is the program at the ACA is run through Binghamton City School District. But one of the statistics I highlighted was a 78% of students that come in at a very low functioning level, like below 6th grade. So elementary education level. And that's like, think about if you took Spanish in high school and you go to Spain and you take an assessment, reading assessment, what grade level are you going to score at, right? Probably elementary level. I know I would in Spanish. So you have people coming from Ukraine who studied English in Ukraine, but when they come and transition it to an English reading level, that's a 6th grade reading level. Now, this is a doctor or a nurse from Ukraine. So they're capable of, I don't know if you've had surgery recently. I had surgery recently and I had so many Ukrainian doctors and nurses, right? But they have to get that reading level to at least 12th grade before they can enter SUNY Broome. So to answer your question directly, no, they're not they're just a partner with us. And it just takes a ton of work to get them from a 6th grade reading level to a 12th grade reading level. So then they can begin university. And Literacy Volunteers is the biggest partner, and I can't even express to you, I can express to you. So Cindy, she comes into the ACA every day, and we have students from Afghanistan who have never had a drop of education in their life, right? And she teaches them to read. C, A, right? Like, and she donates, she volunteers 6 hours a week for at least 45 weeks per year. So again, you fund Literacy Volunteers, and you're not just funding the program, you're funding free tutors in the community who are now, like, you're taking all these people that are retiring from the workforce and you're bringing them back into the community to serve for free. It's just an incredible investment, I think. So, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone, it looks like, yep, welcome.
Oh, now it's on? All right. Green is go. Careful what you ask for. I'm wearing my National Civil Rights Museum t-shirt, which is used to be the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, where Dr. MLK was assassinated. He said in a speech, "A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death." I think we reached that point some time ago. I mentioned that because I used to manage these funds. One, you don't apply for them. I don't know why the resolution says allow the city to apply. You get them as an entitlement grant. There are 1,200, at least 1,200 cities, urban cities, but from as small as Elmira to as large as New York City that receive automatic grants through the Community Development Block Grant program. The program is funded and has been for the last 10 years, about $3 billion a year. Okay, so while 1,200 cities get direct entitlement grants year over year, every state receives a portion. Tribal lands receive some portion. Many counties receive a direct allocation. So in some sense, every jurisdiction, every neighborhood in this country can access some of these funds as long as they stick to the priorities, which is really dealing with disinvested neighborhood and helping low and moderate income individuals and serving those individuals. I would talk to the Community Development Advisory Committee and I would say, just think for a second that for 100 months straight during the Iraq War, we spent $8 billion a month. 100 months straight. This program, which is the most successful federal-local partnership in this country, which drives investments in very needed places and in people, is $3 billion a year. It used to be funded at its high watermark in the 70s. That if you adjust it through looking at 2016 analysis, it was $15 billion. So if it was just funded at that levels, 1970 levels, we'd be talking about how could we allocate $10 million in Binghamton, not $2 million, $10 million. All of the folks that are here that are providing essential services could receive a lot more support. And maybe we would be able to solve those who are experiencing homelessness instead of using derogatory language and dehumanizing them from the mayor's office. I encourage the council to join others that send resolutions to Senator Schumer, to Senator Gillibrand, to our Congress reps, to the president, that CDBG funding needs to increase substantially. Substantially. I don't think I need to tell anybody that while I use the example of the Iraq War, we are still spending a tremendous amount. Now, where are we going to find $12 billion? I don't know if you watched the annual orgy around the Pentagon defense budget, but it's disgusting. In 2019, the budget was $719 billion. That was an $82 billion increase year over year. And it has gone up double digits every year since. Oftentimes, Congress fall over each other to throw more money than the Pentagon even asks for. And yet, so many folks in our city are struggling all across this country. So I just encourage you, you don't have to apply. You just have to put together a plan and submit your plan on how you're going to spend the automatic funds. But it would be great if the council could also just contribute your voice and let our federal officials know that without policy change, without a change in allocation of resources, we are going to stay mired in spiritual death. And that's not a place I like to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else interested in speaking on this topic? And I already checked in with our clerk. There was no emailed comments for this public hearing. So if there's no more discussion, do I have a motion to close this hearing?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motioned by Councilwoman Middleton, seconded by Councilman Porter. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next, we have our public hearing regarding RL 24-91, a local law to amend the charter chapter 45 to include unhoused status as a protected class. Residents who are interested in speaking, you'll each have 5 minutes. And again, there's the backup chairs over here if you want to come down and start lining up. So if you're here to speak, come on down. Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Hello, Kenny Brown, West Side Binghamton resident. So we all know this is about trying to allow homeless people to have some kind of dignity in their possession of their belongings and allow them to, be equal in the representation under the law is the same as a housed individual. But I think one of the biggest things that blew my mind today was when Mayor Cram made his post. I took a few clips from it because they're pretty telling. Who is the proposed law helping? Certainly not Binghamton residents. The homeless are Binghamton residents. Whether him, his buddies, or any of you like it or not, and it's his and your duty to represent them. Another quote, the law would perpetuate a dangerous and ineffective way of dealing with people in need. How is the current method of throwing away all of someone's belongings, including their own shelter, helping those in need? Who's in need? The person that needs that 3-foot square of grass. These are photos of homeless encampments, Binghamton. Or these are photos of homeless encampments prior to cleanups by the DPW. In his post, the first 2 pictures show a burnt out encampment under the State Street Bridge along the river on the south side. That location has looked exactly like that since I was there in late March. It looked like that last week when I was there handing out water. And you know what? Even though he said cleanups by the DPW, it looked just like that when I was down there at 3:45 this afternoon after he made the post. So he's bullshitting you. Sorry, he's bullcrapping you. Prior to cleanups by the DPW, like I said, still there. And by the way, Mr. Costi, this is your district we were talking about specifically in that photo. Those are your constituents, whether you like it or not. I suggest taking an afternoon, walking down there, talking to them, because they are people who have families, dreams, hopes. They don't want to be on the street. They don't want to be sleeping by the river. And although they're homeless and most likely didn't vote, they have something in common with the rest of your residents. They didn't vote for you. So maybe go and talk to them and talk to the people that you're representing, because no one forced you into this position. It's your job. You're literally collecting a taxpayer paycheck to represent people. And I've seen multiple city council meetings where you at the end just say, nope, I got nothing to say. You can go home. You don't have to be here. Someone else can do this. There's a lot of other better people. There's one in the audience, honestly. On this topic, it's not just Mr. Costi's district either. I know Mr. Hotchkiss has homeless issues in his district. Mr. Dundon does. Everyone does. It's even on the west side. That's how much it's happening. It's crossed the bridge from downtown to the west side, the pinnacle of Binghamton, the beautiful west side. You can't hide the homeless. It doesn't work that way. They exist. You see the smoke rising from underneath the bridge in the winter when they're trying to stay warm by Roberson. They're sleeping in the parks. You go to the Riverwalk downtown. There's tents. And ironically, it's the same tents that the students were using. So I guess Soros must be funding the homeless people too, but that's a whole other topic. But it's just, there's no reason we should be treating these people like anything other than people and citizens of Binghamton, because they are that. And anyone that votes against this, I wish I had my piece of paper. There was a quote that Mr. Costi said, it's not about social justice, it's about law and order. Well, right now it's about justice. It's not just about law and order. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny.
I'll do a quick reminder that there's no electioneering and no swearing, but thank you for your comment. Councilwoman Middleton.
I just wanted to add on to that. Thank you, Kenny, for kind of switching the narrative. I know that today there was a post out talking about encampments. We all know that encampments are illegal, and someone can't just camp out in front of your house. I encourage everyone to speak to your council members about this legislation. Talk to Rebecca, as she is the one who proposed this information. One of the things is it's about a human right. And I need everyone to know, I live in a beautiful house on the west side of Binghamton, but at any time, something can happen and someone can be homeless, or, sometimes a mental episode or something may happen. I do know that there are issues, and I've had so many constituents contact me today talking about that they're against this, but I just want everyone to think about the other half. I know that the mayor stated today that this there is no solutions, but he put out this stuff without a solution. And I think that's what we need to really focus on, having uncomfortable conversations to try to get a solution. You can sit out there and say, oh, this is what's going to happen. But if you don't have a solution, then you're actually adding to the problem. So sorry about that.
All right. Do we have our next speaker?
Well, hang on,
Oh,
I'd like to
okay.
add to that. So since he's the guy that doesn't have solutions, instead of flooding our phone calls, flood his phone. Blow up his phone all day long and leave message after message after message. I mean, even if he doesn't get back to you, he's got to pay attention, where instead of you guys just filling up our voicemails when we're listening to you, we engage with you, we interact with you, and most of us are for you on this. Don't just come after us. Make sure you blow up his phone and his mailbox. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any more speakers for public comment? Please come on down. Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Al Panicha. I'm an attorney in My name is Al Panicha. I'm an attorney from Endwell, and I'm here on behalf of my client, Marchuska Productions, who are the owners of the Metro Center. And I have with me Justin Marchuska. And we're here to address the proposed amendment to only a limited part of this proposal, and that would be the amendment to section 45-5 regarding housing and real estate transactions. Now, my client and I, we have absolutely no objection to the cause of this legislation, which is to address discrimination against the homeless. Certainly is a worthy cause. Our problem is the problem that we have is the way that this is written. This section makes the execution of that cause problematic. And the reason that it's problematic is that a property owner, especially of a commercial property, is unable to, if you read the section 45-5, is unable to figure out what exactly they are not allowed to do, what they're prohibited from doing. It's very ambiguous, the rule, the statute. Here it is. And if I may, if I'm looking at the section, it's particularly subdivision D of that. And it says, with regard to unhoused status, it shall be unlawful to engage in any of the following acts wholly or partially for discriminatory reason. And then it goes on subdivision D. And it says for private entities, it also includes the city, but my concern here is private entities. It prohibits private entities from discrimination by, quote, by refusing to recognize an individual's reasonable expectation of privacy involving their personal property and place of residence. And it goes on to say, including displacement of their person or personal belongings. Now, if I have to advise my client as to what this actually means for your operations, it's almost impossible for me to tell them this is what you can't do or this is what you're allowed to do. The language is so ambiguous. Now, the problem is not necessarily the language is ambiguous, which it is, but the problem comes up for the property owner is that the law as written in section 45(9) also allows for a private cause of action against the property owner for a violation of the law. And not only does it allow for a private cause of action, but it allows an award of attorney's fees against the property owner for violation of the statute. So here you got a statute that's ambiguous. It's difficult to understand what's allowed and what's not allowed. And yet the property owner is going to be subjected to potential large awards for attorney's fees. In fact, in many of these types of situations where attorney's fees are allowed. And by the way, the norm in our system is that the parties are each responsible for their own attorney's fees, and that there is no award for attorney's fees for any party. That's the norm. This is not the norm, that there's an award for attorney's fees. But but it's not unheard of. The problem is that when you have these statutes with attorney's fees allowed, attorneys seem to focus on these statutes. They say, hey, we can find a matter, we can find several plaintiffs, and we can just build a case and get a huge award of attorney's fees. We can prevail. But the problem, and
You have a little under a minute left.
the problem with the property owner is that once you're faced with this type of lawsuit, you haven't, your choices, you either got to settle to try to avoid having these outlandish attorney's awards, or if you decide to go ahead with it, there isn't insurance that's going to cover your liabilities. It's not like any other type of liability that you can undertake. There is no insurance. So you're facing potentially disastrous judgments. So if you're going to pursue this, I ask that you reconsider the language to make it clear what a property owner can't do or what a property owner can do, so that you remove all this ambiguity and make the property owners, responsible citizens. But they'd like to be responsible citizens. They just need to know what they can't do. That's what we ask, that you take a look at this language, and we're not the cause is noble. Thank you.
I actually have a question before you two get up. So I believe I've seen this play out in the past. You, Al and Mr. Marchuska, speaking out in the public hearing is the basis for you to set your own lawsuit against this law if we end up passing it forward, correct? That was the whole point of you coming to the public hearing tonight, to set the groundwork for your own lawsuit?
I don't think we don't need to be here if we're going to sue it.
Okay.
It's not a requirement.
No, but it shows that you tried to that you made a good argument, you made a good faith-based effort, and then with nothing changed in that gives you the groundwork. Because I have seen this done before with real estate dealing, so I was just curious.
Not by me. I've not.
I don't know if I don't ask.
The purpose here is to actually ask you to look at the statute and give us some guidance as to what you actually don't want happening.
Okay.
So that it's not ambiguous. Okay. So it's very clear cut. It's very hard to follow up, to actually be active on something if you really don't know what the scope is. Where do you go out of bounds? It's like a football field. You gotta have stripes. You have to have the lines out there so that you know when you're outside the lines.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're looking for, is to know where those lines are.
Okay.
All right.
I had a question. I thought it must be no less than 72 hours from the date of the service. Must be respective department of letterhead. Include the name and title and direct contact information of the enforcing department, or serve during daytime hours, or must notify occupants right of reasonable expectation of privacy.
I don't know where you're reading from. But I'm reading from subdivision D of 45.5, which sets what the standard is.
Well, I was thinking that that is part of the amendment for an advance notice. So it is kind of somewhat, to me, what I'm looking at, and maybe I'm wrong. I can be.
I'd be glad to follow up.
But if it means that 72 hours, that's kind of leaving to the aspect of people being notified, at least something is being said that can be done.
I'm not familiar with I'm not familiar with what section you're referring to. I read through this last night for the first time, and I don't recall coming across that.
To clarify, it was something that was submitted to us by the person who submitted the legislation.
Yeah,
I don't believe it's in the public packet.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
it
not.
is?
It isn't.
It
It
isn't.
isn't.
There was
That
a
that
draft
was
submitted.
that was a draft, that was submitted to us.
Oh, okay.
And shared with the mayor.
And I'm sure like she's coming up
Yeah,
next.
she
She
could
could,
probably answer your
she could
question.
answer a lot of your questions. So she's here,
Okay.
person that can do the legislation.
Oh, so like I say, all we're asking is for is to know where the lines are, where what we have to do to comply.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
So Rebecca, as it has been stated, I wrote and submitted this legislation. Before my time starts, would you like me to respond to any aspects of
please.
what? So first, pursuant to section 45(9), the private right to action that exists already substantially within chapter 45 human rights law. So we did not amend the private right to action that is already in place. If he is confused about the unhoused status aspect, then he would also, I would imagine, express confusion regarding all of the other statuses that are represented. But we did not amend that section in particular. It was existing within chapter 45. Also, this legislation does not permit an unrestrained right for unhoused persons to encamp on private property. That has been spread. It is false. And I can speak to that briefly in my statements.
It's just only something that is meant for search and seizure, so they can have their belongings, to my understanding.
There, section 45(5), as it was amended under the housing and real estate transaction, yes, does include language that would reserve and protect the Fourth Amendment right of unhoused persons from the warrantless search and seizure of their belongings and allow them the Fourth Amendment right of right to privacy.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, and I'm happy to answer any other questions. For my time this evening, however, I typically am the one to bring data to these conversations. This evening, I wanted to bring a story. So 18 years ago, next month, I lived on the South Side and spent a lot of time walking the city. One Saturday that summer, I met a guy in front of the library who told me he was headed to a free lunch on Carroll Street. So I tagged along. There at what used to be the Carroll Street Ministry Center was the first time I was exposed to extreme poverty and homelessness in the city of Binghamton. It was immediately and entirely unacceptable to me. And I went back every Saturday to that meal for years after that. One guest, Gary, had been homeless before, but by then had lived in the same apartment on Front Street for almost 20 years. He'd worked for the county decades prior, but the onset of a severe mental health disorder left him on disability, which was only enough to cover rent, so he walked from meal to meal each day just to eat. As Gary and I got to know each other, we discovered a mutual love for mystery novels. I shared at one point that Phyllis A. Whitney was my favorite author, and from then on, he'd show up at the center every couple of weeks with a new Whitney that he'd found. About a dozen in total, and I still have every book. When I first met him, though, it took weeks for Gary to even respond to my greeting each Saturday. He'd nod, never look up. And after about a month, I realized that he had stopped expecting anyone to see him. He had stopped expecting anyone to remember his name or ask how his week had been. I can't begin to explain what that realization felt like in the moment, but to know it was true and is still true for so many others still devastates me. In 2016, Gary's landlord sold his building to a developer who evicted all of the tenants and turned it into student housing. The only alternative Gary could find was the Dixie. He lost 80% of his belongings in the move and died within 6 months. I wish I could describe for all of you the difference between how someone is when they have a place to call home versus when they do not. I know that blaming the poor for their poverty is not new, but I will never understand how we presume to think that we get to decide who is deserving of a roof over their head. We cannot solve homelessness in this community until we are able to see those experiencing it as human. The guy curled up on the park bench is someone's son, a brother. They have lives and interests and hopes just like we do. It's not as easy as simply finding somewhere else to sleep. About 450 emergency shelter beds exist in Broome County, and every single one is full most nights of the year. We've known for over a decade that we don't have enough affordable housing in this city, and since COVID, we've run out of shelter beds as well. There is nowhere else for them to go. This law does not permit unhoused individuals to sleep in public parks or on private property. We're not proposing that unsheltered individuals be allowed to camp anywhere they choose. What we are asking is that when an encampment is identified, the residents are given both advance notice of the site's clearing and access to resources rather than being forcibly displaced and their belongings treated like garbage. And while I get the attention on those sleeping on our streets, the vast majority of those who experience homelessness locally are sheltered. Over 2,700 each year who are staying either at the Y, the VOA, or in a hotel that DSS is contracted with.
You have a little under a minute.
Too often, employers and landlords see these addresses on applications and immediately screen them out. That is also the kind of discrimination this legislation attempts to address. I believe with my entire being that housing is a human right. But since offering that to every city resident without a home is not an immediate option, we can at least offer them the dignity of acknowledging that we see them. Thank you.
Don't leave yet. Hang on,
Wait.
hang on.
No.
All right. Thank you for bringing this legislation forward, and thank you for speaking. I know you just wanted to share a story, but I think it's also valuable to hear a lot of data and information from you because you're a great resource for that. I think it's kind of a little bit shameful that we're beginning this conversation with kind of political smeared by the mayor that is blaming this for like a growth of encampments that is imminent as soon as this law passes. Meanwhile, I think we all know that like homelessness has continued to increase under this administration over the last 10 years, and I think that record should be set straight. And I know you have like the data on that, and I hope you can like share just a piece of it because I think it's a really unfair political attack.
Sure. I think I'll start with the most present, which would be Mayor Cram's current term. So we've seen an increase in homelessness of about 20% overall in just the last few years, 3 years since Mayor Cram took term. I mentioned 2,700 individuals throughout Broome County. That is about 450 families with children, over 300 school-aged children within Binghamton City School District alone who experience homelessness each year. If we look just at families with children, we've seen an increase of 72% just since 2021. In the last, we'll say decade, so decade following the development of the downtown center and the proliferation of student housing, particularly among the unsheltered homeless population, we've seen a 542% increase. So it's not just that the policies from the executive and legislative branch in recent years have failed to prioritize increasing affordable stock. With the conversions of affordable stock to student housing that we've seen in the last 10+ years, we're also rapidly losing and have lost affordable housing stock. So his claim that this legislation will result in an increase in encampments is entirely unfounded. But what we can completely substantiate with data is that the increases locally are direct.
Switch the mic. We want to hear you.
The increases locally are directly attributable to failed policy over the last few terms.
Thanks. I think, yeah, one last point. Lost my train of thought. Go ahead, Councilman Dundon.
So I'm actually going to ask Kenny Brown to help out on this one. So Kenny, you're good at putting snippets out, and I want this documented to come across what the mayor put on Facebook. So Rebecca, you are the one that proposed this legislation, correct?
Correct.
And in this legislation, nowhere does it say encampments can help it happen in schools or
No.
public parks or public libraries, correct?
Correct. Go ahead.
And in your legislation, it does state that private property owners, whether of commercial property or residential property, still have the rights that they've always had
Correct.
prior to this legislation. So everything that was propagated today on Facebook by Mayor Cram, as Kenny Brown said, is basically bullcrap.
Correct.
So Kenny, you make sure that gets out there for me? Thank you so much.
I think the piece that I would point out about that in particular. No, I think you said it well enough. I'll just leave it there.
Wanted to also comment, I know that I guess it is, we thought it was public, but it's not, but the protocol that you proposed that city workers would be partnering with like outreach during any encampment clearing if it comes to that, but I think it just like makes a ton of sense. It's just like everybody knows that it's just like if there's no people are only unhoused because they have nowhere to go. So if you eliminate that space, like they're also going to find a place that they can't be. So they obviously need some services and attention, and having the city partner with different agencies that can accommodate that. I think that's just a good strategy, and I'm looking forward to codifying that.
Thank you. And we didn't want to submit this without solutions. That's the whole point. What we've been doing is not a solution. It's clearly not working. So this isn't we talk a lot in advocacy and legislative circles about unfunded mandates, or like this is a solution that provides a protocol for humane response when, as far as we are all aware, the only protocol that exists is to send BPD or DPW out in the middle of the night, often during the winter, regardless of inclement weather, to simply gather up belongings and forcibly displace people. That is not humane. It is not dignified. And that's what we're trying to address. Our protocol would connect unhoused individuals who are facing relocation with the street outreach workers whose capacity is admittedly limited, but we can prioritize street outreach efforts if we know that encampment is going to be cleared. So it just makes sense.
Rebecca, I had a quick question. So I had a lot of my constituents call me today. One of my constituents said they are worried about something like Seattle, how they have a lot of homelessness in Seattle, and they're worried about the health conditions. They're worried about maybe needles being left around or garbage being left around. Can you speak to that, and just to speak to the constituents there who have that issue, who have concerns about that issue?
Sure. So and I would expand that a bit beyond this legislation in particular. We are dealing currently with the encampments that exist. More than anything else, homelessness is a housing issue. So the ultimate solution is that we are identifying increased revenue, just like what was said earlier, to support the development and preservation of affordable housing so that folks aren't left with no other option but to sleep on the street, so that they're not left to throw garbage in non-existent trash cans. They can't afford blue bags. Like, we're creating a problem and then we're blaming them for it. That's backwards. And this heads in a better direction.
Thank you so much for answering that.
Other questions? Okay,
No, thank you.
Thank you.
we'll invite up our next speaker. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Salka Valerio, and I am a community organizer with Citizen Action. And I do a lot of housing work, also outreach and all of that stuff. Rebecca did an amazing job explaining what the legislation is. I was also part of the committee who helped draft up that legislation as well. And one thing I could say, well, I could say a lot of good things about Rebecca, but Rebecca makes sure that she brings people to the table with lived experience. It's not just Rebecca making things up and just writing things out and saying that this is what we need. She actually brings community to the table to get these things going. My personal story, I was homeless from the age of 17 till I was about 20 years old. Fortunately, it wasn't in Binghamton because I probably would have never made it. I was homeless in New York City. And as a teen, I used to go to the bus station, right? Because that was the safest place to go, where it was really hot outside. Whether it was really cold outside, that was my shelter. I stayed warm at the bus stations. I stayed cool at the bus stations. I would ride the train from Brooklyn all the way to Far Rockaway. So if you ever been to the city, you know that's a long train ride.
A train.
Yes, and that train ride is long enough for me to at least get some amount of time of sleep. And I also used to go, I was at Times Square. I would go to the Virgin record store, listen to music, chill in the libraries. So as a homeless person, I utilized a lot of public spaces to keep cool, to keep warm, and to keep safe. Granted, I didn't look like I didn't have mental health issues and I didn't have a drug addiction issues, which a lot of the times people that are on the streets do have these issues and face these issues. Most of the time when I had to sleep out on the street was because there wasn't no bed available at a shelter. So to bring it back to Binghamton, we don't even have those resources where we could actually offer beds to people. And so they have to actually sleep outside in the streets. And in the summertime, it was just 99 degrees outside. And one of our houseless folks was denied access to the bus station to keep cool. Thank God for Kenny and other outreach folks that volunteered their time to go hand them cool water and food to make sure that they stay hydrated. And now the mayor, he's out there making it seem like these people, like our homeless neighbors, do not deserve decent human dignity at all. If they're they should be allowed to sit at the library for 3 hours, even if they're just sitting there. They should be allowed to sit at the bus station, even if they're just sitting there, because there's no solutions. They were trying to, ACBC was trying to get a warming center for them, and that got shot down. So you can't shoot something down and then say, oh, the homeless people can't have encampments and things like that. Where are they going? Housing is really a huge issue. And let's talk about the price and how much rent is. People that have limited income, which usually is folks that are on disability, you can't find nowhere for $400. DSS only allow you $400 for rent. There's no housing here for $400. So guess what? A lot of these people, when they're turning it into student housing, when they pushing people out of their housing, they're living on the streets. Even folks that there's a lot of people in here, I think, from our outreach program that go out every Wednesday night. We go underneath bridges. We don't wait for the homeless to come to us. And we see the conditions that they live in. They don't choose to live in that condition. They don't want to stay there. I'm sure they would like to have a warm bed to sleep. And like Kenny said, there's garbage since March at this place that Rich David so-called is saying that they should clean up. It's just ridiculous to me. So Mayor Cram needs to stop talking negatively about this proposal when it's just saying that we want human decency for people who are homeless. And everybody deserves housing. Everybody deserves to be respected. Homeless people are part of our community. You can't make them disappear. In fact, the homelessness is gonna increase if we don't do nothing about our housing stock. Thank you.
You. Next up. We got another seat open here, so if you're planning to speak, come on down.
Hi, my name is Jessica Steele. I have a bachelor's in nursing. I am a substance use nurse through Reach Medical. They're based out of Ithaca, but they have a satellite location in Johnson City, and that's where I work. There's been a lot of rhetoric around people with substance use disorder, and that's insulting, but also very frustrating to equate homelessness with substance use disorder. Not that there aren't people who are homeless who have substance use disorder, but that they're number one, that dehumanizes people with substance use disorder. So that's a problem. But also I went to BCC and I had students who lived out of their cars there. My story is actually kind of similar to Salka's. I was homeless in Austin, Texas, and I did the same thing. I worked at a fast food place and they closed at 4. And I would stay and help clean up, and they thought I was just a trooper, but I didn't have anywhere to go. And the first bus that came at like 5:40. So I would stay as long as I could. Then I'd go to the bus stop and wait there until the first bus came. And then I would ride it until daylight came. And then I would go to a park and try and get some sleep. I would pick up shifts, not only because I was saving up for a place to live, but because I needed somewhere to go. And then when I was applying for places to go, I didn't have an address to use. When I was applying to places to have an apartment, I needed a certain credit score. In Austin, the rent was a lot like what Binghamton is now, and I'm talking 2012. So I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was very fortunate to have a community. I had a friend's mom's like be a, what's they called, like a cosigner or whatever. And now I'm about to get my doctorate in nursing at BU. So y'all treating homeless people, thank you, like they ain't shit when they really could be. And a lot of them want to be instrumental in the community, but they're spending all of their energy and time trying to survive. Again, I work with people with substance use disorder. A lot of them are homeless or deal with homelessness. They lose all of their possessions. They don't get a U-Haul. You know what I mean? They can't bring all of their stuff to a hotel room. They lose a bunch of their possessions. I just had a patient today who lost their food stamps because they didn't have an address. And you have to jump through more hoops with DSS just to get food stamps. So now they're also food insecure. Nobody wants to live outside under the bridge, okay? Nobody does. All of them would live in a house if there was a place for them to go. All of them deal with the exact same issues that people with houses do, including substance use disorder. And a lot of people who judge them have posters of like Jim Morrison on their wall. So I really don't want to hear it. They deal with so much adversity and getting on. I mean, if we want to talk about, oh, they left. If we want to talk about the Metro Center, the Peacemaker stage, the MLK Promenade is public property. And there is electricity there that is purposefully turned off so homeless people can't hang out there. Most of the time they hang out there to charge their phones. Now you have people who have a lack of resources, who are working with DSS, who are trying to get homes, who have doctor's appointments, whatever, and y'all won't even let them charge their phone because you're worried about vagrancy. When we're putting businesses before people, then I don't understand at all how we're saying that we work for the people. We're putting things that are not living against other human beings. How much time I got?
You have 1 minute.
1 minute? I had a couple other points. Oh, when I just heard that story, buses are cooling stations. So the fact that we have to have outreach workers to advocate for rights that homeless people already have is wild. That means the city's not doing its job. We're trying to give them rights, but the rights that they already have are not even being acknowledged. And what are we doing about it? A lot of my patients, y'all are throwing away their medications when you clean up these, you know what I mean? And you can't get medications early. They'll say, oh, you just got this 2 days ago. Why do you need more now? A lot of my job is fighting with pharmacies. You're killing people. People are dying. And what you're saying is that one person with a lot of money is worth more than thousands of people with no money. And that's the shit I don't like. Sorry for swearing. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, I'm Amari. I'm a resident and I'm a student. I keep having to scrap and rewrite everything I'm preparing to say, either because Rebecca addresses everything I was going to say way more skillfully, or because someone else trashes what the mayor has said already. Yeah, no, I even the other thing I had, which was talking about Austin, Texas, where I lived before Binghamton, already got talked about. So, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit more because to me, the bigger threat that the mayor's comments have isn't just that they are just completely unfactual. I came to the work session. I was right around here anyways. So I got to hear Rebecca present this the first time. And if he had listened or read the transcript on YouTube or anything, he would know that nothing he said is true about the legislation. But it's also that he is I'm assuming, a specific strategy for dealing with homelessness in mind. And it's a strategy that I know all too well because it was done in Austin year after year. Limits tightened, police budgets increased, areas were constantly cleared, and then fences were put up, and then the fences got barbed wire, and then the fences with barbed wire got surveillance cameras next to them with flashing blue lights. So there was this perpetual cycle of displacement, punishment, surveillance, and ongoing. And it was expensive, and it was also marginally popular among like just regular people. It went to common votes, and like the turnout was like 22% or something, but like this massive and controversial tent ban that happened, which according to like a lot of like anyone who understands like human rights, like that doesn't make any sense and is not a good thing to have passed, did pass because there's this really big sentiment of not in my backyard, where we don't want to pay the cost, we don't want to address it, we don't want our, let's say hypothetically, local business to have to give back to the community in any way whatsoever, even if that means just following straightforward, necessary 72-hour guidelines like was answered. So I just want to say, like, the concerns that Mayor Cram has mentioned are absolutely in bad faith. That everything he has said is to try to steer this towards this strategy of police surveillance, displacement, and just that continual cycle. And that just doesn't work. Austin has the same amount of homelessness, still increasing. It's just hidden away in somewhere that's harder to live at the same exact rate. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Welcome. And we got a seat open down here for the next person who wants to line up.
Hello, my name is Jacob Weber, and I'm a resident of the city of Binghamton. I've been doing outreach to Binghamton's unhoused population for the last 3 years. And in that time, I have heard absolutely heart-wrenching stories of abuse from unhoused people that live here, things that would be unequivocally condemned if they were perpetrated against people in any other protected class. It is clear to me that unhoused people in this country face systemic injustice as a result of economic conditions that are largely out of their hands, as many of the wonderful stories shared here today have illuminated. The fact that many people lucky enough to have a home turn a blind eye to the issue of houselessness make this injustice worse. As in many cases, these people can't advocate for themselves. I can't imagine that anyone who would be presently affected by this updated legislation is here today to speak about it. This makes abuses of the unhoused population worse, be it at the hands of private citizens taking matters into their own hands, the state, or unfortunately, our own mayor. Many of them used to have normal lives just like everybody in this room, and all of us here are just a few missed paychecks or some kind of unexpected life event away from the same fate. And if you were in that position, you would want the same, the dignity that unhoused people are deprived of presently. Across the country, cities are passing draconian laws that attack the human rights of those who are simply not as lucky as others, like Amari just pointed out in the case of Austin. And the mayor's dehumanizing and fascistic comments about the unhoused today are a warning that this tide of anti-houseless rhetoric and legislation could spread here. The city of Binghamton has a unique chance to enshrine human rights for the unhoused and set an example that shows that we are a city that cares that cares about all people who live here, not just those who are economically well off or those who own land. Everyone deserves equal treatment and dignity under the law, regardless of if they have a permanent address or not, and trying to sweep them out of sight will not fix the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Welcome.
Hello, my name is KT Fitzgerald. I'm a Binghamton resident. And I have been volunteering on and off with the Houses Outreach team since around 2021. I've met more houses people than I can count, and I've had dozens of people look me in the eye and weep while disclosing to me the pain that they're in because they live in a city that does not just merely refuse to acknowledge their existence, but actively works to erase their existence as human beings and displace and criminalize them. The removal of the benches from the county-owned area outside the bus station is just one example of the broad cruelty that fascist, anti-homeless, anti-human rhetoric enacts. Not only do disabled folks now have nowhere to simply sit down, but people who do not have a bed to sleep in, which, to many of us is something we take for granted, had their only small offering of respite ripped away from them. No matter what anyone says, this minor example of how the city treats houses people is definitionally an act of state-sanctioned violence and class warfare. Appeals to law and order are highly ironic to me. Any leader with the hubris to claim that a society which allows people to sleep on the street rather than house them and then punishes them for doing so by criminalizing them and destroying all of their belongings. Anyone who claims that a society that does that is based in law and order is a fool. Homeless people are not criminals. They are an oppressed class of people who, due to circumstances outside of their control, are forced into a life of, receiving abuse from the city, from people around them. What is truly criminal and morally despicable is the infringement upon the rights and livelihoods of people who do not have shelter. Fourth Amendment protections are supposed to apply to everyone, not just the wealthy, but bootlickers and sycophants such as Jared Cram want to deny this reality. But that is, enshrined in the Constitution. So I implore you to pass this resolution.
Thank you. Next, welcome.
Hello. So my name is Chase Dufresne. I am, for the last 6 months, I've been on an outreach program at a local nonprofit. I feel like I have just some anecdotal experience that would be pertinent to, the discussion at hand and kind of this amendment that's being considered. I think that just to display, if I was able to, I could go on for hours just about the things that I've seen the past 6 months. The institutional oppression that I've seen individuals face. For example, like a few months ago, just as a short story, there was some type of ordinance. I don't really know the particular details, but something that happened that invited kind of a security and policing presence at the junction. That is a place that we, work with our community members very common. It's a place where they go during the day because it's a cooling station. It's a resource hub. It's community. It's a community center basically. But when this sort of emergency action kind of happened, half of our clients were missing. Come to find out that they were kind of discerning and profiling people based on their individual biases. Their people's appearance, like do they have holes in their clothes, smells, if they're high, like walking in a straight line, that was kind of things that individual officers had to employ in order to discern if they were unhoused or not. Because I think what was going on was they were expelling people if they weren't waiting for a bus, but everyone knows that it's a place for respite and that people that don't have houses because there's a housing crisis here go. But so that, was something that I've seen. I've worked with plenty of clients that have had their belongings stripped up and just thrown away. We had one client, we didn't know where they were for weeks. We didn't know if they were alive or dead. That was horrifying. because of some, what I just described and plenty of previous speakers have just discussed. But yeah, I think a lot of previous people have encapsulated, the experience of unhoused people here extremely well. I also wanted to add and kind of reiterate that the incidence of houselessness is not just an innate and construct that we have to deal with, or something that just exists and we have to live by and just kind of have. It's entirely constructed, and it's entirely an economic phenomenon. I think that it's, people have talked about Mayor Kramer and kind of what or Cram, I don't really know his name, maybe that's whatever, but Mayor Cram and just kind of what he said. But I think that, and kind of creating the onus to put it onto the unhoused community, and that they're victims and the choices that they make kind of create the circumstances they're in. But no one's pointing the finger at like mega landlords in this area, the corporations. I know, for example, I'll name one like Amicus, the amount of properties they have here and the vacancies they had this previous semester, like those, if there were restrictions, if there was economic policy, some type of policy that restricted, just any type of restriction, slap the hands of people that are just making immense profit already, like the owning class, we could maybe put people in between four walls and like they could sleep at night. But yeah, so I just wanted to reiterate that it's also, this isn't an incidence. It's not, the incidence of houselessness is, it's intentional and it's a product of, economic expropriation. So yeah, that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Welcome. Again, if you're coming to speak, we got another seat down here.
Hello, good evening. I'm Carmela Pierce. I'm the Executive Director from the Addiction Center of Broome County. I promise I'm not going to say too much about the warming center and the $550,000 that we actually had to return because our proposition wasn't funded to bring in 40 people out of the weather when it was freezing in a basement on Clinton Street. So
speak about it.
Well, gosh, what wound up happening after that wasn't approved is a private funder offered to fund the services in a church in Binghamton. So 5 nights a week, we have space for 42 individuals that are unhoused to eat dinner, to be safe, to be connected to resources. We turned 1 on April 27th, and in our first year, we had more than 400 different individuals come and spend the night with us. We housed 47 of them. We got 30 of them set up with medical insurance. 31 got sheriff's IDs and identification, because oftentimes if you're unhoused, you don't have your ID, you don't have a lot of the things that you need to get your benefits and to get that squared away. So what I would say to maybe your constituencies that have concerns about this, they don't want to approve it, they don't want needle litter around, call us, we'll come clean it. We do that regularly. We do have, random entities just call us and say, hey, there's some weird needles out, in this grassy area. We will come clean it and take care of that. Like, that shouldn't be a reason. Like, there's things to do if there is any kind of needle litter. We do also have outreach. So sometimes we are in different encampments. A lot of the individuals in those spaces are extremely sick, not just mental health sorts of conditions, but sometimes physical illnesses. And we have to implore them and sometimes offer to help them get their belongings stored safely in order for them to go to the hospital. So when people's stuff is just kind of taken away and trash, like, that's extremely traumatic for them. If that's all you have is your little tent and your garbage bag of things, we don't want that to happen. So we would be happy to help if, God forbid, like, it's determined somebody's spot has to go, we will come help. We don't want that person destabilized and jumping off a bridge or something really bad happen if it comes to that. So I would invite you, come spend the night with us, see who doesn't have a place to live. Come have dinner, see what's going on. Typically this is an environment where these are individuals with disabilities. A handful are there really just because of poverty, but for the most part, we're assisting people that have very significant needs. So Yeah, I think
I
that's
have-
all I wanted to say.
Sorry, I have a few questions. First, can you tell me the location of where the church is and where that's at?
We're at 42 Shenango. So that's next to Alexander's Cafe and Century Alarms.
So the Presbyterian Church, is that where you're at? Okay.
Yes, with
Thank-
Reverend Chastain.
Okay, thank you. And how many nights you?
We're 5 nights a week. We're not open on Friday and Saturday night.
Okay, thank you. And then another thing, I heard that you mentioned about getting people, proper identification and things like that. Can you just talk to us and tell us about the plans that you had to put kind of everything together, which I love that idea, and it was kind of shut down. Can you kind of explain exactly like what was your goal and what was the reason of that goal? Because I think that needs to be explained. Thank you.
So ACBC purchased a large property off of Clinton Street in November of 2023. Our West State Street Clinic, we've now grown to have across services about 1,500 clients and 130 staff. So we no longer fit in the space that we have. So we needed a location that would allow for expansion of the substance use disorder outpatient clinic, the addition of a mental health clinic, possibly some transitional living. But there was an opportunity that we were encouraged to apply for with Broome County to provide a cold weather shelter, which is a shelter that opens when it's 32 degrees below or 32 or below. So we had space in the basement. But unfortunately, it wasn't approved.
Yes, and I have a few other questions about that.
Mhm.
So, yes, that wasn't approved. People have said that one of the reasons they didn't want it there is because weapons. Can you kind of explain like something to that effect?
Yes.
So we can kill that
mean,
narrative.
I do feel like we discussed that thoroughly. So our process at 42 Shenango, and we do this 5 nights a week. Individuals go through a metal detector. They are wanded. Their stuff is cataloged, bagged, and locked in a locker.
Yes. Thank you for that.
I think I just want to reiterate that that whole project was going to be funded privately, and all the city had to do was approve it.
Well, it was actually state funding that was coming through the county, and we had actually already received the funding and we sent it back.
Right. And I think that's pretty shameful that we couldn't approve that project. That's all.
So I'll just add, people said they didn't want the homeless walking down Clinton Street. So ironically, it's right around Thanksgiving when it started to get cold, and there was a gentleman in a wheelchair with no legs because he had them amputated the previous winter due to frostbite. And he was camping across from the Speedway directly on Clinton Street. So it took us months to kind of develop a relationship with him, offer him food. And we finally got to a point where he was like, yes, I will let you pay for a hotel room for me. When we went to go pick him up, Code was giving him a ticket saying, you got to go. Like, he's got no legs and he's in a wheelchair. So like, that's an example of like, we could do better. If Code needs to go out and address a situation like this, like bring a clinician, bring a peer. Let's try to like make this happen in a way that's decent. Like, and I could actually, suggest some areas that Code might want to check out.
Thank you. And just to add on to that, I know people are saying that they don't want it there, but it's already there already. So I mean, there's
Right.
already people there already. So ignoring the problem, it's not really a
Right,
solution.
but just not with ACBC because, we can't provide it in the space. It wasn't approved. Which I think in turn, I don't want my organization to be targeted because this was
course.
something that, political entities decided we shouldn't do.
And I am really sorry about that. And thank you so much for your service, Kamala.
Thank you. Next, welcome. Welcome back.
Good to be back. Tarek Abdelism. So I just want to say this law that's being amended was passed in 2008. So it's been on the books for 16 years. I've never heard a lawyer come down here and say that, my client has a problem interpreting what do you mean against discrimination against Black folks or Muslims or, based on sexual, like I've never seen it. All we're doing is adding another class. This law protects those from discrimination based upon age, race, color, creed, religion, national origin, ancestry, disability, marital status, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, weight, or height. It's been on the books for 16 years. And it's just, we're going, popping in unhoused status. That's it. So I know you aren't allowed to talk to us, I guess. Oh, this is public
we can.
hearing.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
yeah.
can.
So let's play this little fun game because after reading Jared's, the mayor, I was like, where in here is the section that exempts unhoused individuals from laws? Like that just grants them free reign, that they are not. I couldn't find it. It was so bizarre.
Me either, Tar.
So let's just pick a random business downtown. I don't know, the guy who owns Stadium 138.
I like that. I like that choice. I like that choice.
I want you to just like raise your hand if alumni went in and he said, you have to leave. You're black. Get out. How many of you would be opposed to that? How many of you would be opposed to that behavior?
All of us.
All of us. I don't see your hand. Would you be opposed to that? Yes. This law reflects a shared commitment that all citizens should be protected from discrimination. And those who have historically been discriminated against, we're affirming their dignity. Two women in love, they want to rent an apartment. They get there and it says, oh, sorry, no queers. Queers are out. Or you could pay a $500 queer fee.
That's wrong.
Would that'd be wrong, right? You'd
Well,
all
definitely.
be opposed to that, right?
Yeah, it's
Michael? You'd be opposed to that? Sure. Thank you. It's a little nervous there. Someone shows up for an interview here at City Hall. They're on the list. They're on the CSA list, but they're wearing a hijab. And the supervisor says, I ain't hiring that Muslim. Would you be opposed to that?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, definitely. Yes. You're affirming, you're protecting the rights and the dignity of all these people. Let's say the cops just went and arrested seniors in Kennedy Park. Anyone with a cane, whoop, if you're sitting on the bench, we're arresting you. It's a new policy. Would you be opposed to that policy? Of course. So why does adding unhoused status change everything? Why does it change it for you, Michael? Do you understand? There's no exemption of laws. You as a white, male, maybe Christian, heteronormative, if you can get arrested for violating the law, so can the unhoused individuals. This is not an exemption of the laws bill. This is a protection of human rights and dignity. And when there's a pattern of discrimination, we affirm that they are protected against those discriminatory acts. That's it. I don't know why this is so complicated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tar.
Thank you, Tart.
Next. Welcome
Hi.
back,
it's
I
me
should say.
again. Yeah. I felt inspired to toss in my 2 cents after Rebecca's story. I've seen similar stuff. I've been working the kitchen down at the Noma Community Center since we've been short-staffed on volunteers. I've seen a lot of people who were kind of like, they don't feel seen. They feel uncomfortable and all that kind of stuff. But a couple of weeks ago, I saw the damnedest thing, and it really does come down to, we have I don't know if it's an official policy, but it's, just how we do things. We treat people with dignity, respect, compassion. People refer to them as clients and like the paperwork and everything. I refer to them as guests. So after a couple of weeks ago, after the community meal, the lunch was done being, served and everything, everybody was done eating and whatnot. I wanted to tell this story because it kind of goes, I don't do politics, but it goes across the aisle. So after everybody was done eating, we were doing the food distribution. We had some people who were most likely unhoused. They started cleaning. And I was like, wow. So normally a lot of people have assumptions that, that people who are poor, unhoused, whatever, are kind of like lazy or what have you. And these people just, they grabbed spray bottles full of cleaning solution and paper towel rolls, started wiping down tables and, folding them up. And I was like, okay, well, there it is. So I just wanted to share that for, posterity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next, welcome up. We've got more seats down here. People that want to speak.
Hello, my name is Corinne. I am a community member and I've done outreach locally, probably on and off for about 3 years. And I've seen a lot. And I want to reiterate what people have brought to the table tonight, that we're doing something for our community, and the unhoused, the houseless, the homeless, street folks are our neighbors, right? Like all those words we use for them, like I'm assuming everyone here knows their neighbors, right? Knows the people who live next door to them. They're not just people you see passing by on the street, like they're part of the community too, right? It's just that their home looks different than yours. And I'm sorry, I forgot the name. I think she left, the person who's the executive director of ACBC. Carmela, thank you. She was talking about they have their outreach as well, and they've gone into some of the encampments, and also want to underscore that, like, when you go into an encampment, that is someone's home you're going into, right? Like you're touching their belongings. Yes, someone might be sick. Yes, their house looks different than yours. Yes, it might be dirtier, or you don't know, that might be a clean day for them. Maybe they picked up and you're seeing it on a clean day compared to what it looked like yesterday. But that's their home, and you treat it with respect if you're going in there. That's what this law is talking about, like enshrining dignity for unhoused people in, like, sorry, I'm losing words, but like just in this community, capital C, I guess. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Next, welcome up. We got 2 seats down here if there's more people that want to speak.
Good evening. My name is Z from Rosario. And a little bit about myself is I was homeless in New York City as well, but instead of the A train, I was on the D train. I was also using bus stops. I was also using libraries. I was also getting into project buildings, which was probably not safe. Some privately owned. But when I came up to Binghamton, Binghamton showed me that I am somebody, that I can be who I want to be, that I can be an individual, a person, a human, a being that I've always wanted to be, because I didn't feel that way in New York City. When I came up to Binghamton, I was an addict and alcoholic. Probably have some mental health issues that I don't know about, but I'm doing the best that I can while I'm here. And because of Binghamton is where I started. I came off this bus January 5th, 2012. I've been here for 12 years. And now I help out the individuals that are the same specific spots that I've been in. Used to living under bridges, hiding in the libraries, going to bus stations, breaking into buildings. I did it because I needed to survive. I needed one more just to survive. One more day is all I needed. One more bottle of water, one more plate of food. And if I couldn't get it that day, then I couldn't get it that day. It was hard to put my hand out. It's hard to put a hat on the floor and just sit there. At times I did cover myself. At times I did get harassed, but that's okay. I kept on going, just like the individuals that are in Broome County, in Binghamton, and other places that they're trying to do the best that they can. And that's all we've ever wanted, is to be noticed in a way that we can move on with ourselves and move forward. Keep trailing, onward and upward, what my employer says now. And now I work at the YWCA doing street outreach, and I help out the same individuals that helped me when I first came out here. And I'm grateful for what is given to me in order to give out what I can give, what was so freely given to me. So please, I say pass what Rebecca has placed in. She means more than she knows to all of us here in Binghamton. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, I'll turn it over to the clerk. We have some emails.
To whom it may concern, my name is Cody Reed. I am a Binghamton resident in the First Ward, Binghamton University graduate, and homeowner of multiple properties across the greater Binghamton area. My family and I enjoy the ability to walk to our favorite coffee shops, Black Bears and Rumble Ponies games, and stroll the Riverside to Confluence Park. With the recent news of the proposed amendment to City Charter Chapter 45 to include unhoused status as a protected class, I feel our ability to enjoy these amenities will be lost. If this legislation was to be passed, our area would suffer greatly from both a resident and a tourist perspective. Ms. Rathbell's belief that this will not increase encampments in an uneducated view based on history. We can look across the state, Ithaca, or the country, Portland, and see how similar legislation has failed that city. This legislation would cause an increase in homeless encampments in well-trafficked areas, making foot traffic less desirable and driving tourists away. Additionally, this will lead to further property damage that will cost the property owners and taxpayers more money. Our beautiful downtown is loaded with small family-owned businesses. We shouldn't be putting this unnecessary burden on them. This doesn't sound like Binghamton I want to be a part of. Furthermore, this will not help the individuals who are unhoused. These individuals need healthcare, safe shelter, and substance use support. They will not find any of these in an encampment. Moreover, these encampments lead to increased sickness, hygiene issues, increased drug use, and criminal activity. These unhealthy living conditions lead to the further spread of diseases and ultimately affect all classes of citizens. I understand the concerns Ms. Rathmell has, but this is not the correct solution. Forcing our public workers to jump through more red tape in order to remove these encampments is an unnecessary problem, not a solution. Ms. Rathmell states there is nowhere else for them to go, so we should work to solve that problem, not use a Band-Aid. We need to concentrate our effort on housing and health aid solutions. We can look at Houston and Atlanta as cities that have used a housing-first approach and have seen a reduction in unhoused residents. These are the solutions that help the unhoused community and help keep Binghamton beautiful. Regards, Cody Reed. Good
Can I make a comment on that? Is that cool? I don't.
Still public hearing.
It's a public hearing.
Yeah, it's a public hearing, but it's you're asking questions. I don't know how that works when
No, we
they
should
don't
also make a
respond.
comment.
I'll let you make a comment, but I would like this to be addressed in our discussion on rules book.
Thank you. I just want to say that they brought up Houston. That made me think of the lack of zoning in Houston that allows for lots of different developments to take place. And I think that's something that should be explored as we address our housing issues in Binghamton.
This is from Julianne Lee. Good afternoon. I work in the city of Binghamton. I was a resident of the city for about 20 years. I am writing to urge the passing of legislation RL 2491 to protect the rights of unhoused individuals living in the city of Binghamton. This law would give unhoused residents both advance notice of an encampment's clearing and access to resources rather than being forcibly displaced and their belongings treated like garbage. This law does not establish an unrestrained right for unhoused persons to sleep anywhere they choose, does not require jurisdictions to cede all public spaces to unhoused persons, and does not supersede otherwise established charter provisions, loitering, park curfews, right-of-way, etc. Rather than subjecting unhoused people to humiliating and demeaning treatment, I would urge Mayor Cram and City Council to use their position to advocate for policies that show dignity and respect to the unhoused population, investment in affordable housing, directing funds to much-needed social services, and the passing of RL 2491 would be steps in this direction. From Dan Gale, hello, I am writing in regard to the upcoming vote on Law RL 2491, which would only further the homelessness issue within the city of Binghamton. It is no secret that the amount of homeless persons in the city of Binghamton has drastically increased over the last 5 years. Living on the south side, I see this issue on a daily basis. Whether it's the laundromat parking lot or the walking bridge/flood wall area, the issue is obvious. These areas have become not only extremely uncleanly, but also unsafe for the public to use as they are intended. The underpass through the bridge is full of garbage, human feces, and people laying the entire width of it so that you can't pass. These are unacceptable circumstances for any citizens to have to fear. Every citizen of the city needs to be upheld to the same standards and responsibilities to keep Binghamton the amazing place that it is. If we enact laws that inhibit our police force and other city staff from performing their basic duties, i.e. cleaning up and keeping safe the parks and public areas in the city so that they are safe for all to enjoy, then we will lose all control of the issue that has happened across the country and other cities. As a city, it seems that our time could be better utilized finding ways to aid these people on a road to recovery rather than encouraging the behavior that has left them in their current situation. I understand the concerns Ms. Rathmel has, but this legislation is not the answer. Forcing our public works officers to jump through more red tape in order to remove these encampments is an unnecessary problem rather than a solution. I hope that common sense will prevail and we can start to concentrate on more worthwhile legislation. Sincerely, Dan Gale. From Heidi Weeks, Dear City Council, I am submitting this letter to be read at today's meeting. I have the utmost compassion for people who are houseless and facing daily challenges for food, and their safety is important. However, as a business owner in downtown, I watch the front yard of my store every day become a campsite. It's very difficult to function as a business when you have grocery carts full of people's belongings being unpacked and set up in the newly planted gardens right in front of 3 of our shops, where most times they leave their garbage and uneaten food. It obstructs the access from the parking garage to our side of the street and damages the beauty of the newly planted gardens as well. Those gardens have just recently been maintained by a city worker, and it's a shame to see the efforts be destroyed. Let alone city funding is paying for that gardening service. The garden beds do make a nice bench and place to eat lunch, but it's impossible for even the staff members of our businesses or patrons to be able to enjoy it like a park because it's constantly covered with garbage or people camping out. I do believe that people need a place to find shade and rest, be protected from violence when they are finding a place to sleep. The state of our world has created a great amount of this happening, but if they are allowed to take over the downtown business district, then you are facing the possibility of losing a lot of your businesses in the downtown area. Perhaps the efforts need to be focused on creating designated areas of respite for people. There are so many unoccupied areas in this town that could be fixed up and made to be community centers and parks where people who are houseless can find a place. I understand the difficulty in staffing and patrolling this idea, but if there could just be more areas that are made to be a place of respite that they could venture to, that might be extremely helpful. A hard thing, I know, but the important thing is the safety and cleanliness of our city. We all want Binghamton to thrive, and we all want our tax dollars to be able to help people in need. I do also understand that the size of our police force has diminished, but patrolling downtown when it does occur is very helpful in maintaining some of the balance and peace of the area. The proposed funding for cameras in downtown could very well be helpful in this area of struggle. Thank you for your time, and I ask you to please consider my thoughts on this matter. Sincerely, Heidi Weeks. From Amber Brown, District 6. Hello, my name is Amber Brown. I live in District 6. I support this initiative and effort to include unhoused status as a protected class for personal reasons. That is, as a person who has served the greater Binghamton community in various capacities, church ministry, family engagement in local school districts, and youth development, I believe in and live out of my value of empowering people to be their best. This initiative would help to support the area's deeply marginalized homeless community. While my faith informs my choice to support this, I also want to share that I would be homeless if it weren't for my family. Housing in this area has become grossly unaffordable, and as a person of multiple marginalized identities who has worked hard all my life, I am deeply frustrated by this fact, and it grieves me to know that others are in even more challenging situations than myself. While I am not currently homeless, I believe we are all on this planet together and have a poignant chance through this initiative to even the playing field, protect folks worthy of being protected, and make an even better Binghamton. I am proud to be a member of this community where people are working hard to make Binghamton an even better place to live, and grateful for the service of many in community organizing, advocacy, and public servant roles. Thank you for allowing me the space to briefly share my experience and my wholehearted support of this initiative. From Kathy, hello, I am against this legislation, RL 2491. I do not want it to pass. It would be bad for all residents of Binghamton. This is not the way to help the homeless. Allowing them to camp wherever they choose is bad for all homeless. Need a safe place with services, mostly mental health services. I am unable to attend the meeting tonight and want to make my concerns known. Kathleen Heslin. And from David Whalen, dear Council President Matavetsky and City Council members, I'm writing to you today to express my opposition to the proposed legislation seeking to recognize unhoused individuals as a protected class under Binghamton's human rights law, specifically sections A and D below. Unhoused individuals are often not using public spaces in the same manner as any other person, but as living quarters or places to loiter. As a downtown business and property owner, I've seen the negative consequences of this activity firsthand. Most recently, 2 separate young women and their parents who viewed an apartment I had available for rent said they otherwise loved it and it fit their needs, but the street seems sketchy and unsafe. We also regularly hear from customers that they don't come down to Washington Street as much as they normally might because of the prevalence of unhoused individuals in the neighborhood. At my restaurant, we recently had to begin putting our patio furniture away immediately after lunch, as on nicer afternoons, it's typical for unhoused people to use our outdoor cafe to hang out, and they often become hostile or combative when employees respectfully tell them the area is for customers. The reality of the situation is that mental illness and addiction go hand in hand with the homelessness epidemic, and that does pose a serious public safety issue, giving people legitimate cause for concern and reason to take their residence, business, or social outing elsewhere. These are only small recent examples of an ongoing and deteriorating situation downtown. As for the reasonable expectation of privacy, this is a complex legal issue that certainly can't be accurately summed up in a single sentence as it is in this legislation. Context obviously plays a big role here and isn't addressed at all. Much of the language in this legislation seems vague and at times in conflict with itself. I have serious concerns this legislation would inhibit the ability of business and property owners to act in their best interest and protect their private property when interacting with the unhoused, as well as potentially preventing law enforcement or other municipal officials from addressing public safety and quality of life issues. These issues are at the core of Binghamton's economic viability and potential for growth. If this situation continues to deteriorate, it will absolutely reverse the economic progress made of the past couple of decades and cause a decline of our downtown business district. While I absolutely agree that unhoused individuals deserve to be treated with the same respect, dignity, and compassion as anyone else, I don't think this legislation accomplishes that in a meaningful way. I also believe that any effort to normalize or enable their situation is misguided and does nothing to improve life for anyone, especially them. Homelessness is a tragic issue and needs to be addressed in a realistic and comprehensive manner. The unhoused should have access to any and all services and resources they need to improve their situation, but anyone unwilling to accept that help doesn't have a right to conduct their lives in a way that impinges upon another's livelihood, quality of life, or public safety. I urge you to seriously consider the potential negative ramifications, intended or unintended, of this legislation before your vote. Respectfully, David Whalen. This is from Mayor Cram. Dear members of City Council, I am writing to express my opposition to RL 2491 and outline my concerns regarding how its passage would drastically limit the city's ability to effectively respond to homeless encampments. RL 2491 makes unhoused status a protected class, providing homeless residents with special protection from the unreasonable search, seizure, or displacement of their person or personal belongings. Under the best of circumstances, this law will curb the ability of police and other city staff to remove illegal homeless encampments from our sidewalks, parks, school grounds, riverfronts, or any public property. It would also impede residents and businesses from having encampments on their private property removed in a timely manner. And it would open up the first responders and private citizens to legal liability, allowing for lawsuits and monetary damages in court for those who do not comply with the new law. Under even worse circumstances, passage of this law would lead to an increase in homeless encampments on public and private property in Binghamton, as we've seen in other cities. All of these scenarios would threaten public safety and diminish the quality of our parks and public spaces. Binghamton deserves better. It's imperative to recognize the vast and immediate real-world implications this law would have. Ask small business owners in downtown Binghamton what their experiences have been these last several months dealing with quality of life issues related to unhoused individuals. Consider the input from the Binghamton Police Department, the Department of Public Works, the Parks and Recreation Department, and the Office of Economic Development, all of which deal with issues related to unhoused residents in some capacity, and all of which oppose this legislation. The city attorney has also raised numerous legal issues with the proposal. Homeless encampments threaten public safety not only for the general public, but also for the unhoused individuals living there. Encampments need to be quickly removed whenever they pop up. Recently, illegal encampments in Binghamton have been connected to sexual assaults, drug use, arson, gun violence, and other serious crimes. While this legislation was pitched as a way to help unhoused individuals, make no mistake, nothing about allowing unregulated homeless encampments helps the people living there. Tents and encampments put vulnerable residents at risk and offer none of the resources or services they need and deserve. Just last month, the New York Times shone a light on Ithaca's large homeless encampments in a heart-wrenching front-page expose. Unhoused individuals deserve medical care, mental health treatment, and substance use support, and a safe place to sleep. They deserve investments in safe, supported housing with wraparound services to help them succeed. That's why we've allocated more than $11 million towards affordable housing projects in recent years, representing hundreds of new units for families. That includes new homeless housing like the multi-million-dollar projects on Munsell Street and Virgil Street that not only provides unhoused residents with a safe place to live, but also helps connect them with supportive services around mental health, financial literacy, job resources, food access, and more. My administration's track record on housing is clear. No municipal official in Broome County has delivered more in support, advocacy, or new investments in affordable housing, including homeless housing. We will continue that work because it's about helping to make sure every person has a safe place at night. The same can't be said about RL 2491. Who is this legislation helping? Certainly not Binghamton's residents, homeowners, or small businesses, and certainly not our community's unhoused individuals either. Binghamton deserves safe and sanitary public spaces. Kids deserve parks that are free from tents and hypodermic needles. Small businesses deserve clean and safe downtown streets. Residents deserve peace of mind and neighborhood safety, and unhoused individuals deserve a safe place to sleep and access to critical support services. For all these reasons, I urge you not to advance this legislation. Mayor Cram.
So I have a quick question. We're still in public hearing, right? Okay, thank you. So I just that email, we do all deserve those rights that he spoke about at the end, and that is one of the reasons why we need to pass this legislation, because we do all deserve those rights. And also the $11 million in investments, I don't know, maybe I need glasses. I'm not sure where those investments are. So I'm just like kind of confused about that. But I do understand why residents may feel like that. I just think that the narrative that he is painting is absolutely false.
These comments are appended at the end of minutes. From Joseph T. Zakuski, Chief of Police, President Matavetsky, and City Council members, I'm writing to express my opposition to the legislation now before you regarding the unreasonable search, seizure, or displacement of unhoused individuals and/or their belongings from city property. This legislation will drastically limit the police department's ability to respond to illegal encampments on public property and reports by businesses and homeowners of trespassing on private property. Homeless encampments present serious public safety issues not only for the individuals residing in these unregulated spaces, but also for the general public and the first responders called to the encampments when issues arise. Illegal encampments in Binghamton over the years have been connected to gun violence, sexual assaults, drug use, arson, theft, and other serious crimes. This legislation could also create conflict with existing laws and interfere with the police's ability to investigate crimes. BPD trains on constitutional policing and matters like the Fourth Amendment, receiving regular updates and refreshers from institutions like the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services and Broome County District Attorney's Office. Having a local law attempting to preempt long-established police training for officers with no legal backup or explanation is troubling. Also, a local law that deviates from established criminal procedure law and then subjects first responders to civil liability in performing their duties is even more troubling. Beyond all this, the police department is concerned this legislation will lead to a dramatic increase in homeless encampments in Binghamton, as we've seen in other cities, thus destabilizing public safety in neighborhoods and commercial districts and leading to more criminal activity. In the interest of public safety, we ask you not to support this legislation. From Joshua L. Paludi, Acting Commissioner of Public Works. President Matavetsky, I'm writing in response to your email requesting information and my input related to the RL regarding trash/property removal at encampments, regarding the normal process when DPW receives a complaint about refuse or other items left by unhoused persons on city property. A DPW supervisor, typically the commissioner or deputy commissioner, responds to the site for a visual inspection. Our primary goal at that time is to assess the staff and equipment needed to clean up the public space. If individuals happen to be present, the responding supervisor will explain they can't stay on city property and give information on who to contact for housing and other help. The supervisor will let them know DPW will be returning to clean up the area and advise them to remove all belongings. After the initial inspection, the supervisor will assign a crew for cleanup, which typically in non-emergency situations occurs 24 hours later. If the encampment or refuse is causing an immediate public safety or public health issue, cleanup is done as soon as possible. If unhoused persons are still on site at time of cleanup and refuse to vacate city property, DPW will call Binghamton Police for assistance. If no one is present when DPW visits the site for either the preliminary inspection or the subsequent cleanup visit, DPW proceeds with the scheduled cleanup of all refuse on the site. It bears mentioning that DPW is also responsible for trash and garbage cleanups at private properties where trash is accumulated in violation of city code. In cases where individuals are illegally squatting and encampment and trash is, in cases where individuals are illegally squatting and encampments at private vacant properties, these cleanups often require significant staff time and equipment to clear. They often present public safety and public health risks if unaddressed and generate regular complaints. DPW employees have been subject to threats, racial slurs, and harassment by those living at these properties. In both cases, DPW's main goal is to make sure trash and refuse are cleaned up in an efficient and timely manner as staff and equipment resources allow. In fact, we're investigating the purchase of new equipment to handle the sizable cleanups as described above. These cleanups are part of a hard, labor-intensive job that DPW staffers are proud to hold serving residents. This legislation would make an already difficult job harder, limiting our ability to efficiently remove trash and refuse and opening up employees to potential civil litigation. I ask City Council not to move this forward. Sincerely, Joshua L. Paludi. From Sarah Gloss, Director of Economic Development. Council President Matavetsky, I'm writing in response to the proposed changes to the Binghamton Human Rights Law that would include unhoused status as a protected class. Specifically, I seek to provide a view through the lens of impact to downtown and commercial corridor vitality. While I fully recognize the importance of addressing homelessness, I believe these changes could create unintended consequences, especially for business and property owners. The proposed changes raise concerns about the rights of private citizens to protect and control their property and livelihoods. The lack of clear guidelines regarding what constitutes a reasonable expectation of privacy for personal property and temporary living spaces can lead to confusion and potential legal conflicts. This ambiguity makes it difficult for property owners and businesses to manage their premises effectively and safeguard their interests. Business owners, residents, and visitors to our commercial corridors already face significant challenges due to the use of public and private spaces for sleeping and item storage by unhoused individuals. The lack of clarity in this legislation adds an additional complication to the daily interactions had by the many compassionate members of our small business community with whom I work. Our commercial corridors, especially downtown, are the lifeblood of our community, creating jobs and vitality and driving the reputation of the city of Binghamton. This legislation does not address the real issues facing our city in a material way, and the unintended consequences could have lasting effects on the revitalization of Binghamton. I urge you to consider this viewpoint before taking a vote. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Sarah Gloss. Lastly, from Nick Ballard, Acting Commissioner of Parks. Dear City Council, thank you for asking the Parks and Recreation Department to share our perspective on the legislation involving unhoused individuals and encampments. As a department responsible for the upkeep and programming of our city's parks, green spaces, and public land, we have several concerns. First, we are deeply concerned that this legislation will impede the city's ability to remove illegal encampments and general refuse from our parks and other public spaces in a timely manner. Whether through our summer fun, day camp, youth sports programming, or just typical park use, the Parks Department primarily serves the youth of Binghamton. We can't have situations in which encampments or other unlawful uses of the parks encroach on sports fields or playgrounds, and city staff are limited in how quickly they can respond and work with police officers so kids can be safe. Furthermore, we're concerned that the passage of this law would lead to an increase in encampments on our parks, green spaces, and our riverfronts. As it stands, the Parks Department receives regular calls from residents frustrated by homeless encampments in public spaces, particularly in their area of the Riverwalk and Confluence Park. We do our best alongside Public Works to respond quickly and ensure our public spaces are safe, clean, and accessible for kids, families, seniors, and residents of all ages. We typically don't engage in direct contact with unhoused individuals, but rather respond and clean up trash and abandoned encampments after receiving a complaint. This includes regular disposal of hypodermic needles. Binghamton's parks and trails are used annually by tens of thousands of residents and visitors who rely on their public spaces for recreation, exercise, youth sports, and more. As a department, we take great pride in their maintenance and take seriously our responsibility to make sure all residents are able to safely enjoy our parks. We believe this legislation would be detrimental to Binghamton's parks and the residents of all ages who enjoy them. Please vote against this. Sincerely, Nick Ballard.
So with that, is there a motion to conclude this public hearing?
I make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilman Porter, seconded by Councilman Dundon. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. Anyone interested in a motion to take a bio break?
I'm interested in the motion. I'll make
Okay.
the motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. For how many minutes?
5.
Okay. Okay.
10.
Councilman
5.
Dundon, motions for 5-minute bio break,
stick around.
seconded by Council Middleton. All in favor? Aye.
Please stick
Any
around.
opposed? Okay, we'll see you back in 5 minutes.
Your tummy hurting?
Yeah. Oh. I wanted to say something. Wanted people to stick around for this legislation and this camera thing. Stick around. We talk about the legislation of the surveillance cameras and on the north side. Yes, there is a legislation. Oh, yeah.
I thought this was the hearing. That's next. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I need a cookie. Yeah, girl. All right, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I don't make any homegrown raisins because I'm the only one that. Well, what's on the avenue? Cheever, Prairie Park. That's probably, it'll probably be 15. It'll probably be 7. Okay, yeah. Come on. Yeah. I don't know what about it. I've been doing too much accounting, so. I help doing too much accounting. I just ran into. Here, I didn't. And here was the problem. Apparently, had about 30 parking. And got all somebody in the field. It's about $800 rent. Look at the taxes. No, $983. Overnight. Yeah. They wouldn't let me do it. Why you? I couldn't do it. And I did it because I know all. That's long-term people. That's who they are. They're living at $1980. You know, that's what time was 1980 and after, which is at my $98 was 28 cents worth. And if the inflation goes one more step, you know, I just heard somebody mention on the TV that before we reach the government. Every time it happens, maybe 1/3 of the color. Last inflationary rent was around 1/2 of that, 30%. But when England started to talk about how it's going to go of course. You can't put it in perspective. No, that's inflation. Wages aren't that keeping up. Nobody. No, it's all balanced. Where the dollar come from buying dollar, the same. Occupy the same amount of money in our law. Back in any always the same amount, balance the dollar. The balancing would come. That
Doesn't matter what the dollar is, just exchange it. I mean, what you can buy from it. English, they will just adjust again. You know, it's not gonna make them any richer, but just before. What's happening? Many weeks to figure it all out. It's not happening the way it should be happening. We think it's not. Yeah. I work with the numbers and watch that. Right now, the one time I'm playing, I'm looking something out of the end of it, playing $5. So all the locals who want to get there. I don't know. It's not my problem. Somebody else, I read. I remember that.
They're gonna have to come.
Feel that?
All right, I guess I'm looking for a motion to return.
Make a motion.
A second.
Okay, motioned by Councilman Dundon, seconded by Councilman Porter. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're back. Any opposed? Yeah. So next we move on to public comment. So please be respectful. Each speaker will be given up to 5 minutes to address city council on city issues. Unlike the public hearings, we don't respond. So come on down and there's extra seats if you want to line up. Welcome back.
I'm back. South gonna live over on the east side. So what I wanted to say on public comment, Mike, I know you said it's called the mayor's phone and blow up his phone. We could do that too, but we call y'all phone because y'all have the power. The mayor don't really mean anything when it's majority of y'all at the end of the day. So that's why we're calling on you. Y'all the ones that make the votes and make the decision. This is why we have what we learned in social studies, who are the powers that be, right? So y'all the ones that are that makes things make sense. And the other thing I wanted to say is, as a former homeless person that used to live on the street, I don't think I ever had the idea to go sleep at a playground or at a place where people would see me. Most of the time when people are homeless, one is embarrassing. Two, you don't want to be in the eyes of the public like that. So you go hide where nobody don't typically see you. And the other thing is, why is there a big mess underneath the bridge since March if the cleanup is supposed to be fast? If we want to do an example of if I was a police officer, because I did go to school for that, but decided not to become a person that protects property over people. So I decided not to do that. But if I actually went through with it and I was a cop coming into a encampment and this was in place, this would be the example. Hello, sir. This is an illegal encampment. You have 72 hours to take your possession and leave this spot. Sorry, you're not able to stay here. You'll have to find somewhere to go. That's all this amendment is saying to do. Simple. Yeah. That's it. Period. It's not saying anything about people can go and sleep wherever they want. It's not saying none of that. And another thing is, there's an issue like in the city parks. When I go, Jamel's not a toddler anymore. so he doesn't use the pools or, well, he don't use the splash parks. But when I take my little, my friends' kids to some of these parks, the bathroom is not open. That's terrible. How is it the summertime and I'm taking little kids to the park and the bathroom is not open? So are the little boys are they supposed to go behind the tree? Like, what's going on? That's unacceptable. The bathroom should be open. When the park is open, the bathroom should be open, period. If the park, whatever time the park should be open, the bathroom should be open at the same time. There's no reason why we have locked bathrooms at the city, at public parks. And again, I did raise the concern of in the housing places, to put bumps there so people could slow down during traffic. So somebody else raised the issue again to me because the kids, it's summertime, the kids are out of school. So they're out in the complexes, running across the street, you know, doing what kids do. And cars are still zipping through. So we need speed bumps in the complexes to make sure that these cars are slowing down because the kids are outside playing. And that was pretty much all. Oh, and I wanted to bring the fact that on the west side of Binghamton, where all the student houses are located, you could see tumbleweeds just blowing through the street, how empty it is. And at the same time, all the hotels are packed out with families that need homes. It's disgusting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Caleb Deshaw. I'm a resident of Binghamton and I'm here tonight to talk about Resolution R24-39, accepting funding from the district attorney to set up cameras in North Street and corridor and on the north side. There are already 20 active cameras in the city of Binghamton, constantly surveilling its residents. Why should we add more? Will it make our community any safer? Most studies do in fact find a reduction in crime in areas where surveillance cameras are installed, but where does that crime go? Does it just disappear? No, it just moves to unsurveilled locations. Surveillance cameras displace crime, they don't prevent it. So what's the solution? Should surveillance cameras be fitted to every corner of the city? Of course not. Nobody wants to be constantly spied on by some unknown BPD employee. Do you think this technology isn't being used to track and locate unhoused individuals for the police to harass and unjustly arrest? If you want to take an action that will prevent crime, address its causes. Poverty, addiction, lack of mental health care. These are the issues we should be passing resolutions on, not invasive technology that restricts privacy in our community. I ask that each of you reject this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Welcome back.
Kenny Brown, west side of Binghamton. This is on, still on homelessness. What's not? The security cameras, I saw the press conference that Battisti and Akshar and Cram all got together and did the other day. It was cute. And it was, like we talked about earlier, bullcrap. Because if they were so sincere about their concern about security cameras stopping crime, or even security cameras being used to solve crime, where are the stills from the attack on a homeless individual outside of the Greater Binghamton Transportation Center on May 15th? I have a full-filled foil, Supervisor Skinner's report that verifies there was an attack on a homeless individual on May 15th outside of the bus station. There are cameras all around the bus station. They are not using the cameras. So what makes us believe they're going to use the cameras for what they claim? It's just a continuation of what happened in the early 2000s after 9/11 with the Patriot Act. We're being told that we need to throw away our liberties because of security reasons. And if anyone knows anything about history, there's a great quote on that, and about how that all of this inevitably turns into them spying on us in any other way possible. I've got a lot of things to say about Battisti. I'm not going to say them here, but don't buy it. I know you're all smart. Don't buy it. He wants control. He wants a conjoined force with Akshar. The same with Cram, I'm sure. He wants the help of the sheriffs. We saw that on 420 when the sheriffs came in and did their little thing of destroying a peaceful gathering. I don't trust them just because I had to do their job for them. I watched them stand on the side while innocent civilians came in and got involved. Innocent citizens came in and got involved in the middle of what was happening in the middle of the street. They didn't do anything. I had to stand there and stop it. And then they threatened to arrest me. So I don't buy anything about them wanting to stop crime or help the citizens when all they clearly seem to do is want to help themselves. And once again, it's been 42 days since May 15th, since the attack that happened at the bus station. This isn't even about the security officer that got attacked. This is about a group of youth that went around and blatantly attacked a homeless citizen. There's rumor of another one that happened the day before. I don't have the foil to prove that one, but we do know about the first one, the second one, the only one we know about on May 15th. It should be said to them that they need to release this footage. Constantly, the sheriff's office is releasing footages of petty larcenies at Walmart. They have the control of this footage and they don't want to put it out there about a violent attack on citizens. And if that doesn't tell you anything about their clear intent, I don't know what will.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak at public comment? Were there any emails for public comment? Thank you.
From Francesca Ham, City Binghamton resident, City Council, it is now halfway through the year and my sentiments from the first time I wrote in have not changed. Again, a simple read through Robert's Rules, the City Charter, and New York State Open Meetings Law would have easily prevented the numerous mistakes, embarrassing meeting etiquette, and constant late or non-existent agendas and legislation. I myself have foiled the meeting minutes 23 times this year. If anyone is keeping track, that is every single meeting since City Council took office. Let me repeat that. Every single meeting since City Council took office. Why did I need to foil these? Pursuant to open meetings law, minutes of meetings of all public bodies shall be available to the public in accordance with the provisions of the Freedom of Information Law within 2 weeks from the date of such meeting. That means 23 times this year, the city clerk and the city council have been in violation of NYS law. Care to explain? 6 months is more than enough time to figure out how to be in compliance with the law. Hopefully the next 6 months I won't have to foil every single meeting as well, but I will if needed. Here's hoping you all wake up and stop playing council member for fun, but I won't hold my breath. Francesca Ham.
Thank you to everyone who spoke tonight. We can now move on to second reading legislation. We start with introductory resolution R24-39 considered in municipal and public affairs. Councilwoman Middleton.
Thank you. This is a introductory resolution R24-39. This is a resolution to accept funding from the district attorney for the installation of cameras.
There a second?
Second.
Okay. Motioned by Councilwoman Middleton, seconded by Councilman Costi. Discussion.
Yeah,
Councilman Porter.
yes, so we are here. We're back to being attacked again for doing what is right. Rather, we are being pushed or bullied. Yep, it's your money. I just feel that it profiles and targets people of color. Again, in this community, under the guise of public safety. With all the grants that has come up, you would think that you will put these cameras in other high crime areas as well. Rather just than the area that is prominently poverty stricken in an area that is predominantly filled with people of color. The high crime areas that the head of the crime analysis unit mentioned, South Side East and South Side West, along with the west, the whole of parts of West Side of Binghamton could use cameras as well. And it seems that there's been people, constituents that would like to have them, or is it that they're inferior, so they rather have surveillance of someone else rather than themselves. There are complications with these cameras. as we all have heard. Alone that they may cause issues with facial recognition and storage, and facial recognition dealing with people of color. We as a city should try to do better and do other things to fix the poverty levels. Again, we are third, right under Bronx. More youth services programs that does not need to be interfered by BPD, because I know what they're doing. They're pretty much trying to gain the trust of the youth and to have them snitch. So, well, not to mention that we have the mayor defunding his own law enforcement of 13 positions, which we sat right here. I heard the comptroller or the former comptroller talk of moving funds away from BPD to cover other vacancies within the city. I don't appreciate being put up on television as a criminal, like a wanted poster, when I know I can't trust BPD, the mayor, the DA, or other law enforcement to do their job when they can't even take in consideration what the state AG had mentioned. But I guess that's what slave catchers do. They have to obey Massa because Massa's been good to them. Or is it that you resort to your own biases and following what is indoctrinated many years ago? You're slipping. I see your white painted hood is showing. I know how I'm voting. You think because of the racist views and actions, and you would be right, because I can't trust you. Plus, I don't know how others would vote. But the fact is, it just alienated people in the council. The mayor just alienated people in the council who might have been potentially or possibly trying to vote for this. And even a Republican council who might have just, who can still go and vote for this, regardless after what had happened. I just say shame on you. Shame on the mayor. Shame on the DA. Shame on Fred Ashkar. There's a bunch of scared children who can't get their racist, felonious, seditionist, treasonous way. So I just find this very deplorable, especially after what happened Monday with the press conference. So I'm angry, I'm mad, and that's pretty much all I got to say.
Yeah, I'd like to make a statement.
Councilman Dunn.
So this resolution's really been difficult for me. I've been, from the beginning, I'm anti-Big Brother. I'm anti more cameras. I believe in the right to privacy. I stuck to my guns to that. I think the press conference that Paul Battisti, Fred Akshar, and Jared Cram did just showed a very unprofessional way to bully us to vote for their agenda. On the flip side, what makes this tough for me is I do keep in my mind that even in my personal beliefs, I work for the residents. And there's a lot of residents in my district that are for these cameras. And you try to explain different things to them, but at the end of the day, a lot of my residents in my district are for this camera. So this is going to be a way. My vote on this, I'll release it, I guess, when I vote, but it's definitely something that I've had a hard time for my own personal beliefs versus the residents I represent.
Councilwoman Middleton.
So I just want to start by saying, before this came up, city council did not vote yes or no on this. So I'm still confused about the press conference on Monday. On Friday, after Juneteenth, I spoke with the mayor's office and I told him that we were in the process of handling this. One of the issues that we had is we listen to all of our constituents. And so if any constituent comes to us with a problem, we're going to research it and kind of figure out what's going on. We don't just go with the flow because we were elected by the people in our district. So sometimes that might take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but with anything, we are always using our constituents' best interest. I am highly appalled by so that was Friday. So now Monday comes and I see all of our faces on a screen like we committed some freaking crime, which is like absolutely disgusting. For anyone to put our faces out there as a tactic to bully us to vote for that, as a tactic to scare the people and the residents of Broome County without giving the full information when we are just doing our jobs. And that's how it's been for the last 6 months. Like with us, like I have kind of been humble in all of this, not trying to bash anyone, but I'm honestly over it. They always speak this thing like, oh, we should work together. We should work together. But at any moment, they go and bash us for no reason instead of waiting to talk to us to find out what is the reason why. And like I said, there are a bunch of different branches of government, and we are the legislative body. We do not work for Fred Ashkar. We do not work for Paul Battisti, and I do not work for the mayor. So when we are making decisions, it is for the people of Binghamton and for the people who voted for us. Now on to that. I have had constituents and people of the North Side because I work on the North Side daily. And this is where the cameras are coming in. So now I have people who are really worried, especially people that live by the North Side Deli, and they're worried about things that happen over there and they want to feel safe. So to me, I understand all aspects of it, the public safety part and also the safety part of all of this. If people would have took time to kind of speak to us before putting out a press conference and a smear campaign when we're just trying to do our job, I think this would have all been alleviated. Thank you.
Right. Councilman Costi.
Yeah, I mean, I fought you guys for over a month on this, so I'm just going to keep this short. For me, this is common sense legislation. I think the installation of cameras is going to help put criminals behind bars. And I just ask, just please don't let a personal vendetta cloud your judgment and get in the way of common sense. Thanks.
Can I just ask, how does it feel to fight us for a month on it and still get posted with us?
I just want to speak to that too. It is a common,
Middleton.
I'm sorry. It is a common sense legislation. However, I don't feel like we should be attacked whenever like someone tells me to do something, I'm not going to do it. And my only bosses are my mother who's still alive and my 2 grandmothers who are deceased. So nobody else can boss me around. So I do understand that, you know, it is common sense, but I'm not going to jump at the mercy of whoever tells me to do something right away. Sorry.
I do want to kind of speak up though for Councilman
Dunn.
Councilman Costi. He did from the very beginning stick to his guns, stated his point. And at the end of the day, even as a Republican who backed this, they put him up there with us, no different than us. Like that just shows how there's an inner group and then there's the rest of us. It's not Republican or Democrat.
It's a lack of decency.
Councilman Porter.
It's the lack of decency. It's the total disregard and total disrespect. I would have been nice to have a negotiation of some kind or come to some mutual aspect of that. It seems that you want to put this camera in this area, in which there's a whole bunch of cameras within this area already. So the problem, and then you don't have the statistics of how these cameras with the cameras that you have to show how if they have prevented anything. to my understanding, it sounded like when talking to one of the captains, it was like something was solved with just two ring cameras. And if that's the case, why don't you just go pay people to help people to put ring cameras on their doors if that was but regardless, it's just to have someone say that there's other high crime areas, but you just want to put it in this one area because this is what considered the highest, supposedly the highest, and not put it in other places that would just benefit just the same, or at least to have that. It sounds a little discriminatory to me. It sounds and yes, I agree. I'm not against public safety, but I can't trust the people that say they are public safety when they have not done right by the people in the first place.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to
Councilwoman
add,
Middleton.
I just wanted to add on to that. And then there was another comment going around saying, oh, what if there were cameras where Eliza Spencer, I saw that online. First, I feel like that it's absolutely disgusting to use that young dead girl's name in this discussion because there were cameras and there were ring cameras and the crime is still not solved at this moment. So I really feel like just bringing her up during this camera discussion is absolutely disgusting.
Even then, there would be no pole cameras in that neighborhood because that neighborhood is not considered a high crime
Thank you.
neighborhood.
Thank
Me
you.
and Selka live around the corner from that neighborhood.
Thank
So cameras, using that to say cameras would solve that murder is nonsense.
Thank you.
And because even when they
Councilman Porter.
sat here, David Bidwell of the Crime Analysis Unit mentioned what I just mentioned, South Side East and South Side West, along with parts of West Side and North Side. It just makes no sense. If that's the case, put those cameras in that area. That's all I'm saying. And it would have been better instead of having a press conference and trying to show some kind of force or try to bully me, which I don't like being bullied. And I definitely do not like being bullied. It would have been best to come talk to us and try to talk to us and make that step to talk to us.
And I'm sorry. I just want to say one more thing, and then I feel like I'm done. And to all of us on council, just remember that when people don't have power, they try to divide, dissolve, and defeat. And I feel like we are all doing a good job at processing and thinking about any legislation that we put forth, regardless to what is being said about us.
Councilman Hotchkiss.
Thank you. I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I don't think it's common sense legislation. I think there's a lot to weigh here. A lot of points have been raised about the encroachment on our personal privacies and how this contributes to mass surveillance efforts throughout the country, and that a lot of it is being controlled by a private company that is really looking to profit off of the data that it will be collected. And we don't know what's going to happen with that data at the end of the day. We won't have any oversight over it, even though there's a promise that it's going to be deleted. We don't know it'll be deleted. We don't know if there's going to be storage. We don't know if there will be a data breach, and we don't know how that information could possibly be used against us as private citizens. And I think it's strange to hear that there are so many people that are welcoming this like encroachment on our personal privacy when so many people across America have constantly pointed at China's surveillance systems that track people and like create their citizenship score or whatever that is, and have frowned upon that. It's like, at least we have our personal freedoms in America and we don't have that happening. But in reality, we continue to encroach on our own personal freedoms in the name of public safety or crime fighting, and it's usually the most in the poorest areas where we're advancing that. So I think, yeah, there's a lot more to consider, and this just isn't regular old common sense legislation. Further, I think as I've been digging into the flock cameras and the advancements in surveillance, just last week, Edward Snowden had recognized that there was a former NSA director joining the board of a leading AI company, which is OpenAI, which is the has the Chat GPT product. So there's an obvious continued encroachment from the national surveillance community into the private entities that run AI companies, and that has something that has continued to happen through the whistleblowing that has happened like around 10 years ago when the NSA built backdoors into Google and into Microsoft, and that created a national outroar that all of this surveillance is happening on everyday citizens. And I think everything is going to be connected because this is all part of a government network that is being connected through these different data hubs. So in my heart of hearts, I do not want this. I do not want to vote yes to this, but I spent a lot of time reaching out to residents and speaking with them about how they feel about having cameras specifically at Town and Country. There's some opposition and mixed feelings, but there's not a ton of resistance. And I think that's the result of cameras being advertised as a solution to crime and a solution to the conditions that people are facing there. However, a lot of I don't think any of the county legislators, except for Mary Kaminsky, have actually talked to people that live in Town and Country, and I don't think Paul Battisti has. I don't think Fred Akshar has. I know that Mayor Cram has not talked to anybody that has lived in Town and Country. There's easier things to get done that would increase safety there, like maybe having locks on doors, like that would help out a lot of people with people not trespassing into other apartments. But they don't have that there, and a lot of people that are raising their kids are concerned about the air quality because apartments that have been empty have rotting garbage in them, and it hasn't been maintained at all, and the leaking roofs have mold that is never addressed. So when we're talking about, I think crime kind of falls into public safety and public health, and if we're concerned with the public health of people in Town and Country in the north side, and north of Main community, we have to also consider the housing conditions that they're in, because they're probably doing more damage to those communities than the crime in those areas. So I would really strongly encourage the people that are proposing the cameras in the name of fighting crime to actually see what people are up against at Town and Country and what their actual needs are. Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts on this. So the other thing is our just general approach to public safety is like, we need more cops, we need more cameras, we need more cruisers. And that's the most expensive approach to this. I read a study a long time ago that was specifically looking at the effect of youth services on communities and how effective it is. And the result was that for every dollar in youth services, you can either spend $1 in youth services or $11 in policing and incarceration. So youth services are that effective and cost effective. So for the fiscal conservatives amongst us, I think this would be a more savvy investment to make and doing targeted outreach to the youth. And I hope that the county would consider that strongly and be as aggressive in rolling out meaningful youth services and targeted youth services to communities in need as that they are with trying to roll out mass surveillance. I think lastly, I want to close with a quote from Frederick Douglass, which I think ties in well. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And I think that's a much better approach than what we're currently doing. And I think, yep, I had a lot of thoughts. So there was a teen that was arrested for shooting into a crowd, and it was because of the cameras that Paul Battisti said that was possible to make that arrest. But if we have a 19-year-old that is firing into a crowd, I think we've already failed, and the arrest that happens afterwards in the prison sentence is a continued failure of our community. So I think we need to address issues with our youth before we just jump to trying to crack down on crime. So I could go on, but those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further discussion? Councilman Porter.
I think they keep saying quality of life. I don't know what they think of what quality of life is. Because when I think of it, I always think of healthcare. And one of the first things is do no harm. So the question is, where does it fit on how much harm would it do to the community? And I do know that in some instances it would be some harm because it seems to be to me as a way of profiling and targeting. And I also see the other side of it as a way to help, but they haven't even considered the issues along with having the cameras there. Like you said, data and privacy. It even opens us if things go wrong and accuse the wrong person or have an issue of accusing the wrong person. It leaves us open for a lawsuit. So I just think about do no harm. That's all.
Okay, I have some thoughts. One of the things that I found kind of contradictory to the way we do other things is the lack of structured input from the most impacted persons in this process. So a few weeks ago or months ago at this, I can't keep track of time anymore. We had an Abel's pub noise variance, right? And for that, the clerk's office sent out certified letters, right? To everybody in a certain radius, the most impacted people by the sound. And that was for music that would be playing one weekend night only from, was it 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And we got letters sent out to all of those people. And they got to all come and directly give input. The clerk's office also deals with block parties. So if you want to shut down a street for one day, you have to get, I think it's 75% of the people on the street that you want to shut down for your one-day block party to say that you're interested. On the traffic board, we're considering making the last leg of Woodland a one-way street. And the traffic board chair or deputy mayor sent out letters to everyone in the most affected area. All of these things impact much more than just the most affected neighborhood, but we super saturate to get input from the people in those areas. I was thinking about with this RL, is there a way to put forward a resolution that requires these types of camera sightings to have some sort of required input, whether it be like the block party where a certain percentage is required in order to move forward, or whether it be like the noise ordinance where that information is gathered, but city council in that case is empowered to make a decision in either direction, but they're forced to listen. The challenge that I faced was that while this RL specifies the location of the cameras, our next RL that will be coming relating to the state money that can be used for cameras, perhaps in those other neighborhoods that Councilman Porter mentioned that wouldn't be getting from this RL. There's not really a mechanism because we won't have the information of even where those things are going or what is being purchased. So that was, I guess, disempowering. I thought I had something to help standardize a process to get the information that I think is needed in order to make these types of decisions. But it doesn't work in most of the situations. It's kind of unique, it seems, that this particular grant specifies those locations. And in the future, my understanding would be with these other grants that the police department or the mayor or the executive side would be making those determinations, and there would be no discussion of sightings with city council. So I guess what I want to say is that I think the city does really well on getting input on a lot of things. And I would be interested in getting ideas from the public, from department heads, from people who work in the city, who want to work with me on some sort of legislation to think about how we can make the discussion of cameras, because this discussion is going to keep coming, more inclusive of constituent concerns, particularly the constituents in the most impacted neighborhoods, and make sure at least those concerns are documented and travel with whatever legislation or action is taking place. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts that came up, and I was interested in hearing a little bit more from any Councilman Porter, Councilwoman Middleton, or Councilman Hotchkiss on those conversations that they've had with constituents, since we don't have that mechanism for getting the audience
Is
here from those neighborhoods.
I mean, the people I spoke with, specifically on the north side at work, they want the cameras, they're for them. It's kind of like their safety mechanism of what they feel like is important to them. But I do like your idea about that. I'm not sure if that can happen before this vote, probably not. Maybe, no, it can't, right? Yeah, the vote's happening. But that would be something in discussion that I think we should like talk to people, see, what we can do about it. But the people that I spoke to, people in my district, it's been half and half, but more so people on the north side that I've been speaking to that live around that area, North Side Deli and some of Country Town that come inside the store, they're for it.
And
Councilman Porter.
I know that I've had a couple of emails from constituents, and then a couple of constituents who are not even in my district or in the district of District 4, which is astonishing that some of those people who are not even in that district want cameras. And I'm thinking, that doesn't make sense to me. It brings up an idea of what that is, and it's just strange to me when I see that. And there's some who have been very adamant about not from some of the couple that I've received from constituents, that they feel that it's not even necessary. And for some of the reasons that Nate brought up, that I have brought up, of dealing with the issues that's going on with the cameras itself. So I guess in the future, for having something as a mechanism to I guess I don't know what else other than we've been having public hearings, and we've been going out at least trying to tell people to come to public hearings, or if that's the case, or posting it. I don't know what else other than a town hall. So I don't know if possible.
Councilman Hotchkiss.
I think I said most of what my thoughts were. No, but I think generally when you say, do you want cameras, and somebody like has a bullet hole in their car that they didn't have anything to do with, they're like, yeah, that would be a good thing. However, it's like there's a lot of other factors if you try to zoom out and like look at the bigger picture. And everybody, when I like have a longer conversation, it seems like it's not going to prevent a tragedy from happening, but maybe it'll like bring justice for that. And they're like, we'd rather have somebody here We'd rather have like better like lighting systems. But if the cameras are the only thing that we're being offered, then yes. Because it's better than nothing, I think. But yeah, the conditions of the apartments there are of a greater concern, and that's what I hear about more.
Thank you. All right, if everyone's said their piece, I guess the clerk can call a roll.
Councilmember Porter,
Hell no.
Councilmember Middleton. Yay. Councilmember Dundon,
Yay.
Councilmember Costi,
Aye.
Councilmember Hotchkiss,
Aye.
Council President Matavetsky.
Yay.
That's 5-1. Thank you.
The resolution passes. All right, thank you to everyone. We can now move on to council member communications. Tonight we'll start with Councilman Costi.
Yeah, I'll say I'm glad we passed the resolution for the installation of cameras. I think it's good for the city and I think it's a win for public safety. I'll touch, I've talked a few times on the unhoused status and I just don't support it. I mirror a lot of the comments that came from DPW, the Parks Department, Police Department, and the mayor's office. That's all I have to say today.
All right, let's go to Councilman Dundon.
So that was one of the hardest things I've had to vote on for since I've been in office. Like I said, my personal beliefs were pretty much against that and just anti-Big Brother, but I've had probably in the last since Monday, I don't know, 50 plus residents reach out to me on my personal phone on top of my city council phone, telling me that they elected me, telling me that they would vote for me again, but they voted for me to make sure I ensure public safety on the east side. And as much as I tried to kind of stand my ground and explain my place, at the end of the day, that is who put me in office. That is who I actually sit here for and represent. And even though my personal feelings were against it, I do want to represent my constituents to the best of my ability. But this definitely, of everything that we've faced in the first 6 months, for me, has been one of the hardest things for me to vote on.
Councilman Porter.
First off, I consider public safety important. I just don't consider that the people who are in charge of public safety are doing their job. I knew I was gonna be the only one that's gonna be voting on this, against this. And I knew, I mean, I thought he said yay. He said yay. Yeah, see, I know what I said. I know, I listen. I listen, so I know, I see. So I listened, I heard what he said, and I knew I was gonna be the only one to do this. I ain't serving, I don't plan on running again. And I know pretty much my constituents, at least on the upper part of Jarvis, pretty much don't like me because I'm not in their fascist head. So I knew this was gonna be the thing, but that's okay. I got it. Ain't no skin off my back. So and people gonna vote on what they're gonna vote on. I looked at the constituents and I looked at what it is. And my thing, again, do no harm. So also, if anybody in First Ward goes to the neighborhood watch meetings, it will not be held for quite a while since it's been at Woodrow Wilson, and the Woodrow Wilson is closed due to the summer. So they'll probably be starting up again sometime either in August or September. Every second Tuesday of the month at 6. Doors will open at 6 and be at 6:15. Unless there are other changes. Do I don't have her. Oh, yes. If you want to get in touch with the president, which would be Marianne Callahan, at her email, which is MAIN Afghanistan at, I believe, at yahoo.com. So if you want further information about Neighborhood Watch. Again, I'm angry about how the mayor tend to blast us. I'm angry about how he talks about the unhoused and like we're just gonna put them anywhere, that they get to go somewhere, like they get to stay anywhere. So it's I'm spent. So that's all.
Thank you, Councilwoman Middleton.
I'll start with this. First, tomorrow we have a West Side neighborhood meeting on at the Unitarian Church at 6:30. Please come out. Talk about things that are are important to you and our district. And I just wanted to, say, please contact me if you have any issues or concerns. I stated again that there will be a walkthrough on July 10th in our district. Please reach out to me regarding the traffic issues that we are having. If you'd like to join that walkthrough along with me and some other constituents, I think the mayor and the deputy mayor will be there along with BTS. Also, just to piggyback on to everything, this probably was the hardest vote that I've had to vote on. I didn't agree with it all, but the constituents and the people that I spoke to, I had to put them first. Thank you.
Thank you. So Southside Neighborhood Assembly is on break for the summer in terms of neighborhood meetings, but there is Southside Second Sundays concerts at the Southside Commons. So you can check out the Southside Neighborhood Assembly Facebook page. If you can't find it, shoot me an email to my City of Binghamton email and I'll send you the link. Yeah, a lot of things are on break, so hopefully everyone's taking some time with friends and family, enjoying the weather other than the storms like tonight. Please do, reach out to us. I guess that was the one piece I was out with family on Monday, so I missed this press conference that I've been hearing about tonight. But I welcome any and all opportunity for constituents to reach out. And again, kind of going back to my point about needing constituent input, it sounds like those organizers of that would like constituents to contact us. So hopefully they'll be interested in supporting and advocating for legislation for such structured constituent feedback going forward with cameras. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Hold up.
Sorry, I missed Nate.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nate. That's what happens when I started with Costi. All right. Councilman Hotchkiss.
Thank you. Yeah, I had the same issue as Councilman Dundon. I generally was against that piece of legislation, but I don't want to be a representative that is going against the direct wishes of the people in their community. And I was frustrated. I mean, I think everybody's frustrated with people that take those actions. So by talking to people and seeing what they wanted, that's kind of what drove my decision. I didn't get any calls from that press conference. Nobody reached out. So I did my own outreach. And if the people that are right there that are directly going to be impacted by this want it, I think that they should have it, even if I am opposed to it. I think that's all I have for my communications tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilman Dundon,